When a brilliant CEO whispers, "If only you were my husband," to her neighbor in a dark parking lot, everything changes. Adrian Cole is just a 32-year-old single father trying to jumpstart a dead battery. Sienna Hart is a powerful woman who shouldn't be falling apart over a car. But that one unguarded sentence, spoken into the cold night air between two people who have been dancing around the truth for months, will crack open a love story that no one around them will understand or accept. This is what happens when the wrong man becomes the only right choice. Like this video and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The wrench slipped in Adrian's hand for the third time, scraping against the rusted terminal. He swore under his breath, shook out his cramped fingers, and wiped the grease on his jeans. The parking lot lights flickered overhead, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made even new cars look like they'd been sitting there for decades. "I'm so sorry," Sienna said from somewhere behind him. Her voice was tight, professional even now. "I can call a service. You don't have to—" "It's fine." Adrian didn't look up. The cable clamp finally caught, and he tightened it down with more force than necessary. Almost got it. He'd been loading groceries into his car when he'd seen her standing next to the hood of her sleek gray sedan, phone pressed to her ear. That particular kind of stillness that meant something had gone very wrong. Adrian had hesitated. They'd exchanged maybe a dozen words since she'd moved into the apartment across the hall 6 weeks ago. Polite nods in the hallway. A brief conversation about trash pickup. She was the kind of beautiful that made him feel like he was intruding just by existing in the same space. But she'd looked so small standing there in her expensive coat, and before he could talk himself out of it, he'd walked over. Now his hands were filthy, his back was starting to ache from leaning over the engine, and he was very aware that his daughter Maya was upstairs with Mrs. Chen from 4B, probably still awake even though it was past 9. "Try it now," he said. Sienna slid into the driver's seat. The engine turned over once, twice, then died with a pathetic clicking sound. Adrian closed his eyes and counted to 3. "Pop the hood again." She did. He adjusted the cables, checked the connections on his own car's battery. Everything looked right, but the damn thing still wouldn't catch. He could feel Sienna watching him, could sense the tension rolling off her in waves. This wasn't just about a car. He'd learned that much about people over the years. The car was never just about the car. "One more time," he said. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then, finally, roared to life. Adrian stepped back quickly, pulling the cables free. Relief hit him harder than it should have. It was just a dead battery, just a neighbor, just a normal Tuesday night. Sienna got out of the car slowly, like she wasn't sure her legs would hold her. In the harsh parking lot light, he could see the exhaustion written across her face. Not just tired, hollowed out. "Thank you," she said. "I don't know what I would have done if—" "It's not a big deal." He was already coiling up the jumper cables, ready to retreat to the safety of his apartment and the mess of dishes waiting in his sink. "Just let it run for a while, 15, 20 minutes. "Adrian?" He stopped. She'd never said his name before. He'd heard it from Mrs. Chen, who knew everything about everyone in the building, but never from Sienna herself. "I mean it," she continued. "Thank you for stopping, for helping, for not—" She broke off, shook her head. "Most people wouldn't have. Most people aren't struggling single dads with nothing better to do on a Tuesday night," he said, trying for lightness. It came out wrong, bitter around the edges. Sienna's expression shifted. Something in her eyes went soft, unguarded. "You have a daughter, right? I've seen you two in the hallway." "Maya, she's 7. "That's a good age." Adrian didn't know what to say to that. He'd never thought of ages as good or bad. Maya was 7 because time moved forward whether you were ready or not. She'd been 6, and before that 5, and before that a screaming infant who'd destroyed his marriage and rebuilt his entire life in the space of 3 months. "She's upstairs right now," he said. "I should—" "If only you were my husband." The words came out so quietly he almost didn't hear them, almost convinced himself he'd imagined it. But Sienna's face had gone pale, her hand pressed against her mouth like she could shove the sentence back in. The parking lot seemed to tilt. Adrian's brain scrambled for purchase, for any kind of appropriate response. This was his neighbor. A woman he barely knew. A woman who wore $1,000 shoes and carried herself like she owned every room she walked into. "I didn't mean—" Sienna's voice cracked. I'm sorry. That was completely inappropriate. I don't know why I said that. But Adrian did. He recognized that particular kind of breaking. The moment when you're so tired of holding everything together that the truth just spills out, messy and unplanned. He'd had plenty of those moments himself, usually at 3 in the morning when Maya was finally asleep and the apartment was too quiet, and he could feel the weight of every single choice he'd ever made pressing down on his chest. You should go inside, Sienna said quickly. She was already moving toward her car, creating distance. Your daughter's waiting. I'll be fine. The car's running now, so… Sienna. She froze. Her back was to him, shoulders rigid. It's okay, Adrian said. He didn't know if that was true, but he said it anyway. Whatever's going on, it's okay. She turned slowly. Her eyes were wet, but no tears had fallen yet. You don't even know me. I know you work too much. I know you come home late most nights looking like you've been through a war. I know your phone never stops buzzing, and I know you pretend not to see people in the hallway because you're too exhausted to make small talk. He paused. And I know you just had the kind of day that makes you say things you don't mean to someone you barely know. Sienna let out a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. I meant it. The air changed. Adrian felt it like a physical shift, like the pressure drop before a storm. Everything that had lived between them in the careful space of polite distance suddenly became impossible to ignore. You don't know anything about me, he said carefully. Not really. I know you're the only person who stopped when I needed help. Sienna wrapped her arms around herself. I know you have grease all over your hands and probably need to get back to your daughter, and I know I'm keeping you here saying insane things that I can't take back. She took a shaky breath. I know I haven't felt this steady in months, and all you did was fix my car. Adrian should have left. Should have made some joke about low standards for steadiness. Should have grabbed his jumper cables and walked away while there was still a chance to pretend this conversation had never happened. Instead, he said, Do you want coffee? Sienna blinked. What? Coffee. I have some upstairs. It's not great, but it's hot. He gestured vaguely toward the building. Maya will be asleep soon, and I'm not doing anything except avoiding the dishes. You look like you could use something that isn't… He waved at the parking lot, the dead car, the entire situation. This. I don't want to intrude. You're not. They stared at each other. Adrian could feel his heartbeat in his throat. This was stupid. This was dangerous. This was the kind of decision that changed things, and he'd spent the last 7 years carefully avoiding anything that might change the fragile equilibrium of his life. Okay, Sienna said quietly. Coffee sounds good. Adrian's apartment was exactly what Sienna had expected, and nothing like it at the same time. The living room was small, dominated by a worn couch and a coffee table covered in coloring books. Maya's drawings were taped to every available wall surface, elaborate scenes of dragons and princesses, and what appeared to be a detailed rendering of the solar system. The kitchen was visible through a breakfast bar, dishes piled in the sink just like Adrian had warned, but it was clean, lived in but loved, the kind of space that had seen a lot of chaos but never gave up trying to contain it. She's asleep, Mrs. Chen announced, emerging from the hallway. She was a tiny woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that took in Sienna's presence immediately. Out like a light, didn't even fight bedtime. Thanks, Mrs. Chen. Adrian was already pulling out his wallet. I owe you… Put that away. Mrs. Chen waved him off. Maya's an angel, you know that. Her gaze slid to Sienna, assessing. You're the new girl in 3C. Sienna Hart. She held out her hand automatically, falling back on corporate instincts. Mrs. Chen's handshake was surprisingly firm. Good to meet you properly. Adrian's told me nothing about you, which means he either doesn't know you or he's trying not to think about you too much. Mrs. Chen, I'm going. The older woman patted Adrian's arm as she passed. You have my number if Maya wakes up. She paused at the door, looking back at Sienna. He's one of the good ones. Don't mess him up. Then she was gone, leaving a silence that felt louder than any conversation. She's protective, Adrian said unnecessarily. He moved into the kitchen, pulling down 2 mugs. And nosy, comes with the territory. Sienna found herself smiling despite everything. She seems nice. She is. She saved my life when I first moved in here with Maya. I didn't know anything about kids, and she just… He shook his head. I don't know what I would have done without her. The coffee maker gurgled to life. Sienna sat carefully on one of the bar stools, suddenly aware of how out of place she must look. She was still wearing her work clothes, tailored pants, silk blouse, the coat that cost more than most people's monthly rent. In Adrian's warm, cluttered kitchen, she felt like an alien. You can take your coat off, Adrian said, unless you're planning a quick escape. She laughed, surprising herself. No quick escape. The coat came off. Underneath, she could feel the tension in her shoulders, the headache building behind her eyes. It had been the kind of day that made her question every choice she'd ever made. The acquisition talks had fallen through. Her CFO had quit without warning, and Marcus, her ex, her mistake, her constant reminder of how badly she could misjudge people, had shown up at her office with flowers and apologies she didn't want to hear. She'd held it together through all of it, smiled through the meetings, stayed calm during the resignation, politely but firmly sent Marcus away. She'd driven home in perfect control, parked in her assigned spot, and then her car had died and she'd completely fallen apart in front of a man she'd been carefully not noticing for 6 weeks. Here, Adrian set a mug in front of her. Fair warning, it's not fancy. It was perfect. Hot and bitter and real. Sienna wrapped her hands around the ceramic and felt something in her chest loosen slightly. Bad day? Adrian asked. He stayed on the other side of the breakfast bar, giving her space. Bad year. She took another sip. But today was especially terrible. Want to talk about it? Not really. She paused. Do you actually want to hear it, or are you just being polite? Adrian considered that. I'm not great at polite. If I'm asking, I actually want to know. There was something disarming about his directness. Sienna had spent so much of her life navigating corporate diplomacy, parsing hidden meanings and unspoken agendas. Adrian just said what he meant. I run a tech company, she said. We do AI integration for healthcare systems. It's complicated and boring, and I love it, except on days when I hate it. She stared into her coffee. Today, someone I trusted quit. Someone I needed, and I couldn't even be angry about it because I knew exactly why they were leaving. The hours are brutal. The pressure's insane. I ask too much of everyone, including myself. That sounds lonely. Sienna looked up sharply. What? Being responsible for everything. Making all the hard calls, it sounds lonely. No one had ever put it that way before. They talked about stress, about workload, about the challenges of leadership. But lonely? That hit differently. It is, she admitted. And then I come home to an empty apartment and try to convince myself that this is what success looks like. That I should be grateful. That I chose this. Did you choose it? She thought about that. I don't know anymore. Maybe I just didn't know how to choose anything else. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Maya wasn't planned. Sienna blinked at the shift in topic. Her mom and I were together for about 6 months when it happened. We were young and stupid and completely unprepared. He picked at the edge of the counter. Everyone told me I had options, that I didn't have to do this, but the moment they put her in my arms at the hospital, I knew. I didn't choose to become a father, but I chose to be her dad. Every single day since then, I choose it. Where's her mother? Denver. Last I heard. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something in his voice went flat. She signed away custody when Maya was 3 months old, said she couldn't do it, couldn't be what Maya needed. I was angry for a long time about that, but now, he shrugged. She was right. She couldn't. And Maya deserves better than someone who's only half there. Sienna felt something crack open inside her chest. You're a good father. I'm a tired father who burns dinner twice a week and forgets to sign permission slips and has no idea what I'm doing most of the time. He met her eyes. But I show up. That's all I know how to do. They sat in silence. The coffee maker had stopped gurgling. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. Outside, a car alarm went off and then stopped. I don't know why I said that thing, Sienna said quietly. In the parking lot, about you being my husband. Yes, you do. She looked at him. Adrian's expression was calm, patient. Not pushing, but not letting her hide either. I've been watching you, she admitted. Not in a creepy way, just, I see you with your daughter in the morning sometimes. The way you braid her hair even though you're clearly terrible at it. The way you listen to her talk about her day like it's the most important thing in the world. She set down her coffee. And I thought, that's what I want. Not the specific situation, but that kind of, I don't know, steadiness, certainty, someone who shows up.
You don't know me well enough to know if I'm steady. I know enough. Adrian shook his head slowly. Sienna, you're exhausted and overwhelmed, and you just had the worst day of a terrible year. I'm convenient. I'm here. I helped you with your car and didn't ask for anything in return, and that probably feels really good right now, but that's not the same as knowing someone. You think I'm confused?
I think you're human, he said it gently. And I think tomorrow morning you're going to wake up and remember you're a brilliant CEO who has her whole life together, and I'm going to still be the guy who can barely keep his own life from falling apart. And that's okay. We don't have to make this into something it's not. Sienna stood up. Adrian tensed slightly, like he thought she might leave. Instead, she walked around the breakfast bar until she was standing directly in front of him. I'm not confused, she said. I'm terrified. Because for the first time in years, I felt something real tonight, and I have no idea what to do with that. Adrian's throat moved as he swallowed. Sienna, you said I don't know you. You're right, but I want to. She took a breath. Is that allowed? Can I want to know you? The question hung between them. Sienna could see Adrian working through it, weighing consequences she couldn't even guess at. His life was complicated in ways hers wasn't. He had a daughter to protect, routines to maintain, a carefully constructed world that probably didn't have room for a workaholic CEO with a tendency to fall apart in parking lots. Yeah, Adrian said finally. That's allowed. Over the next 2 weeks, Sienna learned that Adrian made terrible coffee but excellent scrambled eggs. That he'd been a freelance graphic designer before Maya was born, but had switched to technical writing because the hours were more predictable. That he'd grown up in Ohio, hated the cold, and had moved to California specifically because he wanted Maya to have the kind of childhood where she could play outside year-round. She learned that he was funnier than he seemed, that he had strong opinions about animated movies, and that he listened to true crime podcasts while doing dishes because it made the task feel less tedious. She learned all of this in fragments. 5 minutes in the hallway while they were both checking mail. 10 minutes in the laundry room in the building's basement. A 20-minute conversation in the parking lot when they'd both been coming home late and were too tired to maintain appropriate neighbor distance. They didn't talk about the parking lot confession. Didn't acknowledge the thing that was building between them in these stolen moments. It felt safer that way. Like if they didn't name it, it couldn't hurt them. Then Maya got sick. Sienna heard the crying through the walls at 6 in the morning. She'd been awake anyway, answering emails from her Tokyo office, and the sound cut through her concentration like a knife. She told herself it wasn't her business. Parents dealt with sick kids all the time. Adrian didn't need her inserting herself into his life. She made it exactly 12 minutes before she gave up and knocked on his door. Adrian answered looking like he hadn't slept. His hair was sticking up in 3 different directions. There was what appeared to be applesauce on his shirt, and his eyes had that particular glazed quality that came from extended time in crisis mode. Hey, he said blankly, like he wasn't entirely sure why she was there. I heard crying. Is Maya okay? Stomach bug. She's been throwing up since midnight. He rubbed his face. I have a deadline in 3 hours and no way to meet it, and the pediatrician can't see her until this afternoon, and I'm pretty sure I'm the worst father in the world right now. Without thinking, Sienna said, Can I help? Adrian stared at her. What? I don't have meetings until noon. I can sit with her while you work. Or I can work and you can sit with her. Whatever makes more sense. Sienna, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. She softened her voice. Let me help, please. Maya was a tiny thing curled up on the couch under 3 blankets, her face pale and miserable. She looked at Sienna with fever-bright eyes and said, Are you Daddy's friend? I'm your neighbor, Sienna said, kneeling down next to the couch. My name's Sienna. Your dad said you're not feeling well. My tummy hurts. I bet it does. That's really unfair. Maya nodded seriously. Daddy says I have to drink water, but I don't want to. Water's pretty boring, Sienna agreed. What if we made a deal? You take 3 sips of water and I'll tell you a story. A really good one. Maya considered this. What kind of story? What kind do you like? Dragons. Of course she did. Sienna glanced at Adrian, who was hovering in the kitchen doorway looking stunned. She gave him a small smile, then turned back to Maya. Okay, 3 sips of water, and I'll tell you about the dragon who was afraid of fire. Maya took the water bottle Adrian had left on the coffee table and dutifully took 3 small sips. Then she settled back against her pillows and looked at Sienna expectantly. Sienna had no idea where the story came from. She hadn't made up stories since she was a kid herself. But somehow the words came, spinning out into a tale about a dragon named Ruby who was terrified of her own fire-breathing abilities, until she met a brave knight who taught her that fear and courage could exist in the same heart. Maya fell asleep halfway through. Sienna kept talking anyway, her voice dropping to a whisper, until she was sure the little girl was deeply under. Then she carefully stood up, her knees protesting from kneeling on the floor for so long. Adrian was still in the kitchen. He'd made fresh coffee, the terrible kind he always brewed, and had 2 mugs waiting. That was... He stopped, shook his head. Thank you. She's sweet. She's a terror when she's healthy. But his voice was soft with affection. I can't believe you got her to drink water. I've been trying for hours. Sienna took the offered coffee. I bribed her with a story, not exactly revolutionary parenting. It worked. That's all that matters. Adrian was looking at her strangely. You're good with her. I like her. Sienna surprised herself with how true that was. She's real. Kids are good at that. They drank their coffee in comfortable silence. Through the window, the sun was starting to burn off the morning fog. Sienna could see the parking lot below, the exact spot where everything had shifted 2 weeks ago. I should let you work, she said eventually. Your deadline can wait. Adrian set down his mug. Sienna, I need to say something. Her heart kicked. Okay.
I like you, more than I should, more than makes sense. He wouldn't look at her, kept his eyes fixed on his coffee. And I know that's complicated. I know my life is messy and I come with baggage and responsibilities that most people don't want to deal with. But I need you to know that this, whatever this is between us, it's not just me being grateful or lonely or whatever. Adrian, let me finish. He finally met her eyes. You scare the hell out of me. You're brilliant and driven, and you have this whole other life I can't even begin to understand. And I keep waiting for you to realize that I'm just some guy who can barely keep his own life together, let alone be part of yours. But I can't stop thinking about you. And I don't know what to do with that. Sienna's chest felt tight. I'm scared too. Of what? Of wanting this too much, of getting it wrong again. She thought of Marcus, of all the ways she'd convinced herself that relationship made sense when it never had. I have a terrible track record with relationships. I choose work over people every time. I'm bad at boundaries and worse at vulnerability, and I have no idea how to be with someone who has a child because I've never wanted that before. And now, she broke off, overwhelmed by her own honesty. Now what? Now I see you with Maya and I want it. The words came out jagged. I want to be part of that, part of your life. And that's terrifying because I don't know if I can be what you need, what she needs. Adrian crossed the distance between them in 2 steps. He didn't touch her, but he was close enough that she could feel the warmth coming off him. What I need, he said quietly, is someone who shows up, who doesn't run when things get hard, who's willing to try. He paused. Can you do that? Sienna thought about her life. The 60-hour work weeks, the constant travel, the board meetings and investor calls and crisis management that never seemed to end. She thought about her empty apartment, her dying car, the way she'd been hollowing herself out one decision at a time. I don't know, she admitted, but I want to try. Adrian smiled. It transformed his whole face, made him look younger and more hopeful than she'd ever seen him. That's good enough, he said. Yeah, they started slowly. Coffee in the mornings when their schedules aligned, brief conversations in the hallway. Adrian started texting her random thoughts throughout the day. Funny things Maya had said, articles he thought she'd find interesting, pictures of his disasters in the kitchen. Sienna found herself looking forward to those messages more than any email or meeting. Found herself restructuring her day to make sure she could get home in time to see Adrian and Maya heading out for their evening walk. Found herself wanting things she'd spent years convincing herself she didn't need. But they didn't talk about what they were doing,
didn't define it or label it or make it real in any way that could be broken. 3 weeks after the parking lot, Sienna's ex showed up at her apartment. She'd been working from home, deep in a video call with her engineering team, when the doorbell rang. She ignored it. It rang again. And again. "I need to handle something," she told her team. "Give me 5 minutes." Marcus was leaning against her doorframe when she opened the door, looking exactly like he always did. Expensive suit, perfect hair, that smile that had once made her stupid. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't." Sienna started to close the door. He put his hand out, stopping it. "Sienna, please, just 5 minutes." "You don't get 5 minutes anymore. We're done. We've been done for 6 months." "I made a mistake." Marcus had the audacity to look sincere. "I know that. I was an idiot, but we were good together. We made sense. We made sense on paper. In real life, we were terrible, because I wasn't there enough, because I prioritized work over us." He stepped closer. "But I've changed. I'm ready to do this right, to be what you need." Sienna laughed, sharp and bitter. "You have no idea what I need." "Then tell me." He reached for her hand. "Let me prove. Is there a problem?" They both turned. Adrian was standing in his doorway, Maya on his hip. He looked calm, but there was something hard in his eyes that Sienna had never seen before. "No problem," Marcus said smoothly. "Just catching up with an old friend." "Sienna?" Adrian's attention was entirely on her. "You okay?" The question was simple. The answer mattered. "I'm fine," she said. Then, more firmly, "Marcus was just leaving." "Sienna, come on. She said you were leaving." Adrian's voice didn't rise, but there was steel underneath it. "I think you should listen." Marcus looked between them, calculating. Sienna could see the moment he put it together, the proximity of their apartments, the familiarity in how Adrian spoke to her, the way she was looking at him instead of at Marcus. "Seriously?" Marcus said. "Him?" "Goodbye, Marcus. You're making a mistake. He's... what? Some guy with a kid? You're going to throw away what we had for that?" "We didn't have anything." Sienna felt suddenly, blazingly clear. "And yeah, him." She walked across the hallway, took Maya from Adrian's arms even though the little girl was looking at her with confused eyes. Stood next to Adrian like she had every right to be there. "You need to leave," Adrian told Marcus. His voice was still quiet, still controlled. "Right now." Marcus stared at them for a long moment. Then he shook his head, disgusted. "This won't last. You're too different. He'll never understand your life, and you'll never fit into his. Give it a month before you're bored out of your mind." He left. The stairwell door slammed behind him with a sound like punctuation. Sienna realized she was shaking. Maya was patting her shoulder tentatively, the way she probably did when Adrian was upset. "It's okay," Maya whispered. "Daddy says sometimes people are mean, but it's not about us." Sienna looked at Adrian. He was watching her carefully, like he was ready to catch her if she fell. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know he was coming. I didn't—" "You don't have to apologize." Adrian gently took Maya back, set her down. "Baby, can you go pick out a book? We'll read before dinner." Maya scampered off, apparently unbothered by the drama. As soon as she was gone, Adrian turned back to Sienna. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." She wrapped her arms around herself. "He's not wrong. We are different. Your life and mine, they don't make sense together on any practical level. Sienna, I work 60 hours a week minimum. I travel constantly. I'm always on my phone, always dealing with some crisis, and you have Maya, and you need stability and routine and someone who can actually be present." The words were tumbling out now, all her fears given voice. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be what you need." Adrian waited until she ran out of steam. Then he said, "Are you done?" She blinked. "What?" "Listing all the reasons why this can't work." "Are you done?" "I'm being realistic." "You're being scared." He stepped closer. "And that's okay. I'm scared too. But Sienna, I don't need you to be perfect. I don't need you to have all the answers or fit into some specific mold. I just need you to be honest about what you want." "I want this," she whispered. "I want you. But I'm terrified I'm going to screw it up." "Then we'll screw it up together." Adrian smiled slightly. And then we'll figure it out. That's how this works. Sienna felt something break loose in her chest. All the control she'd been clinging to, all the careful distance she'd been maintaining, it cracked apart, and underneath was just wanting, pure and uncomplicated and real. Okay, she said. Okay? Let's try. Actually try. Not just coffee in the hallway and text messages. Let's figure out what this is. Adrian's smile grew. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her. Right there in the hallway between their apartments, with Maya probably watching from inside, and the ghost of Marcus's contempt still hanging in the air. It was soft and careful and perfect. When they pulled apart, Sienna was laughing. What? Adrian asked. I just told off my ex and kissed my neighbor, and I have a meeting in 10 minutes that I'm definitely going to be late for. Do you care? She thought about it. Not even a little bit. Adrian grinned. Good. Come have dinner with us. Maya's been asking when you're coming over again. She has. Every single day. He took her hand. Come on, I'm making spaghetti, which means it'll be a disaster, but at least we'll be together. Sienna let him pull her across the threshold into his apartment, into his life, into the beautiful mess of actually trying. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The spaghetti was, as promised, a disaster. Adrian had somehow managed to both undercook and burn it, which Sienna hadn't known was possible. Maya picked at her plate with the resigned expression of a child who'd learned to lower her expectations around her father's cooking. It's not that bad, Sienna lied. Adrian snorted. You don't have to be polite. I can see you chewing. It's got character. It's got the texture of rubber bands. He pushed his own plate away. Sorry, I swear I used to be better at this. Maya piped up. We could order pizza. We had pizza yesterday, baby. Pizza's good every day. Pizza's expensive every day. Adrian rubbed his face, and Sienna caught a glimpse of the exhaustion he usually hid. The constant mental math of a single parent on a tight budget. Every decision weighted against money they didn't have. Without thinking, Sienna pulled out her phone. What if I order? My treat. Adrian's expression shuddered immediately. You don't need to do that. I know I don't need to. I want to. She could feel the shift in the room, the sudden tension. Adrian, it's just pizza. It's not just pizza. His voice was careful, controlled. I appreciate the offer, but we're fine. Maya was looking between them with wide eyes, sensing the undercurrent even if she didn't understand it. Sienna set her phone down slowly, recognizing the mistake. This was about more than dinner. This was about pride, about Adrian's need to provide for his daughter, about the massive gulf between their financial situations that they'd been carefully not acknowledging. Okay, she said quietly. No pizza. How about I make grilled cheese instead? I'm actually decent at that. Adrian studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Yeah, okay. That works. The kitchen was small enough that they kept bumping into each other as Sienna buttered bread and Adrian cleaned up the spaghetti disaster. Maya had wandered back to the living room, her attention already captured by a coloring book. The domestic rhythm should have been comfortable, but there was still an edge to the silence. I'm sorry, Sienna said as she laid cheese on bread. I wasn't trying to... I know. Adrian was scrubbing the pot with more force than necessary. It's not you. It's me being weird about money. It's not weird to have boundaries. It's weird when I'm dating someone who probably makes more in a month than I make in a year. He said it flatly, like he was stating a fact about the weather. Sienna flipped the sandwiches, watching the butter sizzle. Does that bother you? I don't know yet. Adrian set the pot in the drying rack, turned to face her. I want to say no. I want to be evolved enough to not care. But the truth is, I have no idea how to navigate this. You live in a completely different world than I do. We live in the same building. You know what I mean. She did. Sienna had been aware of the disparity from the beginning, but she'd convinced herself it didn't matter. Now standing in Adrian's cramped kitchen, watching him struggle with something as simple as accepting help with dinner, she realized how naive that had been. What do we do about it? She asked. Adrian leaned against the counter. I don't know. Be honest, I guess. Don't pretend it's not there. I can do that. Sienna plated the grilled cheese, cut the sandwiches into triangles the way her own mother used to do. And for the record, I don't care about the money difference. I care about you, about this. She gestured at the kitchen, the apartment, the life he'd built. This is more real than anything I have. Your life is plenty real. My life is meetings and spreadsheets and people who smile at me because I sign their paychecks. She carried 2 plates to the table. This is different, better. Maya came running when Adrian called her for dinner. She took 1 bite of the grilled cheese and announced it was way better than Daddy's spaghetti, which made Adrian laugh despite himself. They ate together, the tension gradually dissolving into something easier. Maya chattered about her day at school, about the science project they were doing on butterflies, about how her friend Emma had lost another tooth. Adrian listened with the kind of focused attention that Sienna had learned was his default mode with his daughter, like nothing else in the world mattered except what Maya was saying. Sienna found herself watching them, memorizing the details. The way Adrian automatically cut Maya's sandwich into smaller pieces. The way Maya kicked her feet under the table, unable to sit still even while eating. The easy shorthand between them, built from years of just the 2 of them against the world. She wanted this. Wanted to be part of it so badly it hurt. After dinner, Maya asked if Sienna would stay for a movie. Adrian shot Sienna a questioning look, giving her an out if she needed it. She probably should have taken it. She had work to do, emails piling up, a presentation to review for tomorrow's board meeting. But she nodded anyway, and Maya cheered. They ended up squeezed together on the couch, Maya wedged between them, as some animated movie about talking animals played on the TV. Maya's head drooped against Sienna's shoulder about 20 minutes in, her breathing evening out into sleep. "She's out," Adrian whispered. "I'll carry her to bed." He scooped Maya up carefully, and Sienna watched him disappear down the hallway. She could hear him murmuring to his daughter, the soft sounds of a bedtime routine she wasn't part of but desperately wanted to be. When Adrian came back, he sat down next to her, closer this time, without Maya between them. "She really likes you," he said. "I really like her." Sienna hesitated. "Is that okay? That she likes me? I don't want to confuse her if we're not sure what this is yet."
"We're sure," Adrian said it with such certainty that Sienna's breath caught. "At least I am. Are you?" The question hung between them. Sienna thought about Marcus's words in the hallway, about all the logical reasons this couldn't work. Then she thought about how she'd felt walking into Adrian's apartment earlier, how right it had been despite the terrible spaghetti and the awkwardness about money. "I'm sure," she said. Adrian kissed her, slow and thorough, and nothing like the careful kiss in the hallway earlier. This was a promise, a commitment, a declaration that they were doing this for real. When they finally pulled apart, Sienna was breathless. "Stay," Adrian said. "Not for anything except sleeping. Just stay. I have an early meeting. I'll wake you up in time, I promise." Sienna thought about her empty apartment across the hall, about the emails that could wait until morning, about the person she'd been before she'd met Adrian and the person she was becoming now. "Okay," she said. "I'll stay." They fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, the movie still playing in the background. It was uncomfortable and impractical, and Sienna had never felt safer in her life. The problem started 2 weeks later, not with anything dramatic, but with the slow accumulation of small conflicts that neither of them knew how to navigate. Sienna's work exploded. The acquisition she'd been pursuing for months suddenly accelerated, which meant 18-hour days and constant crisis management. She canceled dinner plans with Adrian 3 times in 1 week, missed Maya's school play because she was on a call with investors in Singapore, started showing up at the apartment after midnight, too exhausted to do anything except collapse. Adrian said he understood, said it was fine, that work came first, that they could be flexible. But Sienna could see the disappointment in his eyes when she texted to cancel again, could feel the distance growing between them even when they were in the same room. It came to a head on a Thursday night. Sienna had promised, sworn, that she'd be there for dinner. Maya had been planning the menu for days, insisting they make homemade pizza because Sienna had mentioned she'd never tried it. Adrian had bought all the ingredients, had rearranged his work schedule to be home early, had prepped everything so they could cook together. Sienna's phone rang at 4:30. Her CFO's voice was tight with panic. The due diligence team had found a problem, something that could tank the entire deal if they didn't handle it immediately. She needed to be in the office.
Now. She texted Adrian. Emergency at work. I'm so sorry. I'll make it up to you both. His response came 5 minutes later. It's okay. We understand. But when Sienna finally made it home at 11, exhausted and wired and fighting back tears of frustration, she found a note slipped under her door. Adrian's handwriting, careful and precise. Maya made pizza anyway. Saved you some. It's in my fridge. Come get it whenever. Sienna stood in her dark apartment, still wearing her work clothes, staring at the note. The thoughtfulness of it broke something in her. She should have been there. Should have kept her promise. Should have figured out a way to balance both parts of her life instead of letting work consume everything like it always did. She knocked on Adrian's door even though it was late, even though she knew he was probably asleep. He answered after a minute, wearing pajama pants and a faded t-shirt, hair mussed from his pillow. Hey, he said softly. You okay? No. The word came out broken. I'm not okay. I keep screwing this up. Adrian pulled her inside, closed the door quietly so they wouldn't wake Maya. You're not screwing anything up. I missed dinner. Again. Maya was looking forward to it, and Sienna's voice cracked. I can't seem to get this right. Any of it. Sienna, it was one dinner. It's not just one dinner. It's 3 canceled plans in a week. It's me choosing work every single time. It's exactly what I always do. She was pacing now, all the stress and exhaustion of the past weeks pouring out. Marcus was right. I don't know how to fit into your life. I don't know how to be what you and Maya need. Adrian caught her hand, stilled her movement. Stop. Just stop for a second and listen to me. He waited until she met his eyes. You think I don't know what your job is like? You think I expected you to just drop everything and play house with us? That's not realistic, and it's not fair to you. But Maya is 7. She's disappointed, but she'll survive. Kids are resilient like that. He softened his voice. And yeah, I wish you'd been here tonight. I wish we could have all made pizza together and had a normal family dinner, but I also know that's not always possible, and that's okay. It doesn't feel okay, because you're being too hard on yourself. Adrian led her to the couch, pulled her down next to him. You want to know what Maya said when you couldn't make it? She said Sienna must have important work stuff. We should save her some pizza so she doesn't go hungry. That's it. No drama, no trauma. Just a kid who cares about you and wants to make sure you eat. Sienna felt tears burning behind her eyes. I don't deserve you to. That's the exhaustion talking. Adrian wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Listen, we need to figure out how to make this work with your schedule. Real boundaries and expectations that actually make sense. Not just me saying everything's fine when maybe it's not. What do you need from me? Adrian was quiet for a moment, thinking, honesty. If you can't make it, tell me as soon as you know. Don't wait until the last minute hoping something will change. And when you are here, actually be here. Not checking your phone every 5 seconds, not half present while thinking about work. Just here. I can do that. And I need you to stop beating yourself up every time work gets crazy. This is your career. It matters. Maya and I aren't going to fall apart just because you have to work late sometimes. Sienna leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence. What about you? What do you need for yourself, not just for Maya? The question seemed to catch him off guard. I don't know. Nobody usually asks me that. I'm asking. Adrian was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I need to know this is real for you, not just exciting or different or whatever. Real. Because if we're doing this, if we're actually building something together, I need to know you're all in, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't make logical sense. I'm all in. Sienna said it without hesitation. I'm terrified and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm all in. Okay then. Adrian kissed her forehead. We'll figure the rest out as we go. They sat together in the dark apartment, the only light coming from the kitchen where Adrian had left the stove light on. Sienna felt the exhaustion pulling at her, but for once it didn't feel overwhelming, just human, manageable. Can I stay again? She asked. You never have to ask. They ended up in Adrian's bed this time, which was barely big enough for 2 people, but somehow they made it work. Sienna fell asleep with Adrian's arm around her waist, his breath warm against her neck, and for the first time in weeks, she slept straight through until morning. The rhythm they found after that wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Sienna blocked off Sunday mornings in her calendar, made them sacred time that nothing except an actual emergency could touch. Those mornings became their anchor point: lazy breakfasts with Maya, walks to the park, sometimes just sitting together while Maya watched cartoons and Sienna caught up on emails with Adrian reading beside her. She learned to be present in the small moments, to put her phone down when Maya was talking, to actually listen when Adrian told her about his day instead of mentally composing responses to her board members. It didn't come naturally to her, the stillness required to just be instead of constantly doing, but she tried. Adrian, for his part, started being more honest about what he needed, asked her to reschedule when he needed her there for something important, told her when Maya had asked about her specifically, stopped pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. They were figuring it out, slowly, imperfectly, but figuring it out. Then Adrian's friends met Sienna, and everything got complicated again. It happened at a birthday party for one of Maya's classmates. Adrian had mentioned Sienna might come, which apparently had sent shockwaves through his social circle. They were curious, he'd said, protective, maybe a little judgmental. Sienna had dealt with hostile boardrooms and aggressive investors. She could handle a few overprotective friends. She was wrong. The party was at a local park, complete with bounce houses and face painting and approximately 40 screaming children. Adrian's friends were easy to spot, the cluster of adults standing near the picnic tables, all of them watching as Adrian introduced Sienna. "This is James and his wife Keiko," Adrian said, gesturing to a couple in their 30s. "We met at one of Maya's playdates a few years back." James had a firm handshake and assessing eyes. "Adrian's told us about you. All good things, I hope." "Mostly vague things, actually. He's been keeping you to himself." James smiled, but there was an edge to it. Keiko was friendlier, asking questions about Sienna's work that seemed genuinely interested rather than interrogative. But even she had a guardedness in her expression, like she was waiting for Sienna to reveal herself as a threat. The real problem was Derek. He arrived late, carrying his daughter on his shoulders. And the moment he saw Sienna with Adrian, his entire demeanor shifted. Derek was built like someone who'd played football in college and never quite let it go, all broad shoulders and carefully maintained muscle. He set his daughter down, sent her off to play, then made a beeline for their group. "So you're the CEO," he said, without preamble. Sienna extended her hand. Sienna Hart. Derek shook it, his grip just slightly too firm. "Derek Martinez, I've known Adrian since college." "It's nice to meet you." "Is it?" Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because from where I'm standing, you're a complication my friend doesn't need." "Derek," Adrian started. "No, let me say this." Derek kept his attention on Sienna. "Adrian's been through hell. His ex destroyed him, and he's spent the last 7 years rebuilding his life around Maya. So forgive me if I'm a little skeptical of the successful CEO who's slumming it with the single dad from her building." The words hit like a slap. Sienna felt heat rise in her face, but she kept her voice level. "I'm not slumming it." "Really?" "Because it looks a lot like you're playing house with someone who has real responsibilities and real stakes. And when you get bored or it gets too hard, you're going to bail, just like the last one did." "That's enough." Adrian's voice was sharp. "Derek, I appreciate the concern, but you're out of line." "Am I?" "Because I remember what you were like after Jessica left. I remember you calling me at 2 in the morning because Maya wouldn't stop crying and you had no idea what to do. I remember helping you move into that apartment because it was all you could afford on your own." Derek finally looked at Adrian. "You're my brother. I'm not going to watch you get wrecked again by someone who doesn't understand what your life actually looks like." Adrian's jaw was tight. "Sienna's not Jessica." "How do you know? You barely know her." "I know enough." "Do you? Do you know what happens when she has to choose between you and her career? Because I guarantee you, man, she's going to pick the career every single time." Sienna had spent her entire professional life staying composed under pressure, had faced down investors trying to lowball her company, board members questioning her judgment, competitors trying to undermine her credibility. She knew how to keep her face neutral, her voice steady, her emotions locked down where they couldn't be used against her. But standing in this park, listening to Derek reduce her entire relationship with Adrian to some kind of selfish game, she felt that composure cracking. "You're right," she said quietly. "You don't know me. You don't know my intentions or my feelings, or what I'm willing to sacrifice for this relationship.
All you see is my job title and my bank account and whatever assumptions you've made based on that. She took a breath. But here's what I do know. I love Adrian. I love Maya. And I'm not going anywhere just because you've decided I'm not good enough for them.
Derek's expression didn't change. Love's easy to say when everything's new and exciting. Let's see how you feel in 6 months when the reality sets in.
Derek, seriously, back off. James had stepped forward, putting a hand on Derek's shoulder. You made your point.
Did I?
Derek shook off the hand. Because from where I'm standing, nobody's willing to say what we're all thinking. That this doesn't make sense. That they're from completely different worlds. That it's only a matter of time before... Before what? Adrian's voice was dangerously quiet. Before Sienna realizes she's too good for me? Before I remember my place and stop reaching above my station? Is that what you think? I think you're setting yourself up to get hurt. Again, that's my choice to make.
And what about Maya? Does she get a choice? Because she's already attached to Sienna. I've heard her talking about it. And when this falls apart, if it falls apart, Adrian interrupted, then I'll deal with it. But I'm not going to walk away from something real just because there's a chance it might not work out. That's not how life works, Derek. You know that. The tension in the group was thick enough to cut. Other parents were starting to notice, glancing over with curious expressions. Maya was thankfully still playing on the other side of the park, oblivious to the confrontation. Keiko cleared her throat. Maybe we should all take a breath. This is a kid's birthday party, not the place for this conversation. Derek looked like he wanted to argue, but James pulled him away firmly. Come on, man, let it go. As Derek walked off, Sienna felt her hands shaking. She clasped them together, willing the tremor to stop. I'm sorry, Adrian said quietly. I didn't think he'd... It's fine. It's not fine. He was completely out of line. He was protecting you. Sienna watched Derek across the park, now standing with his daughter, pointedly not looking their way. I can't fault him for that. You shouldn't have to defend yourself like that. Sienna turned to face Adrian. Is he right? Do your other friends think the same thing? Adrian hesitated, and that hesitation was answer enough. They're worried, he admitted. They think you're going to get tired of dealing with a single dad's schedule, that the novelty will wear off and you'll move on to someone more compatible with your lifestyle. What do you think? I think Derek's an idiot who doesn't know when to shut up. Adrian took her hand. And I think my friends need to trust that I know what I'm doing. But Sienna could see the doubt in his eyes, the question he wasn't asking. Because Derek's words had landed, had found the fear that Adrian had been trying to ignore, that this was temporary, that Sienna would eventually wake up and realize what she'd gotten herself into and walk away. The rest of the party was painful. Adrian's friends were polite but distant, their earlier warmth replaced with careful neutrality. Sienna stuck it out, smiled through the awkwardness, played with Maya when she came over asking why everyone seemed weird. On the drive home, Maya fell asleep in the back seat. Adrian drove in silence, his hands tight on the steering wheel. Talk to me, Sienna said. I don't know what to say. Say what you're thinking, even if it's hard. Adrian pulled into their apartment complex, parked in his usual spot. He didn't move to get out of the car, just sat there staring straight ahead. Derek's my best friend, he said finally. Has been since we were 18. He was there through all of it with Jessica. Helped me figure out how to be a dad when I had no clue what I was doing. Talked me down from about 100 panic attacks in those first few years. He cares about you. He does. And he's seen me fall apart before. Watched me lose myself trying to make a relationship work that was never going to work. Adrian finally looked at her. So when he says I'm setting myself up to get hurt again, part of me wonders if he's right. The words stung, but Sienna had asked for honesty. Do you think I'm going to hurt you? I think you're going to have to choose eventually. Between your career and this relationship. Between the life you've built and the life we're trying to build together. He ran a hand through his hair, and I don't know which one you're going to pick. I pick you. Sienna said it fiercely. I pick this, every time. You say that now. I say it because I mean it. She grabbed his hand, forced him to look at her. Adrian, I know my track record isn't great. I know I've prioritized work over everything else for most of my life. But that was before I had a reason not to, before I had you and Maya. What happens when there's a crisis at work? When you have to choose between a critical meeting and Maya's school event? When your board demands you travel and I need you here? I don't know, Sienna admitted. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that I'm not going to just walk away when things get hard. I'm not Jessica. I'm not Marcus. I'm here, and I'm staying. Adrian was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Derek's not wrong about everything. Your life and mine, they don't naturally fit together. We're going to have to work at this constantly. Make sacrifices and compromises that most couples don't have to think about. I know. And there are going to be more people like Derek. People who think they know what's best for me and Maya. People who judge you for being successful or judge me for not being successful enough. People who think we're making a mistake. Let them think whatever they want. Sienna squeezed his hand. I don't care what Derek thinks. I don't care what your friends think, or what my friends think, or what anyone else thinks. The only opinion that matters is yours. Mine and Maya's. And Maya's, Sienna agreed. So what do you want, Adrian? Really want? He looked at her, and she saw all the fear and hope and desperate wanting in his expression. I want this to work. I want you in my life, in Maya's life. I want to build something real together, even if it's messy and complicated and nothing like what either of us planned. Then that's what we'll do. Adrian leaned across the console and kissed her, and it felt like a promise and a risk and a choice all at once. When they pulled apart, Maya was stirring in the back seat, mumbling about cake and bounce houses. We should get her inside, Adrian said. They carried Maya upstairs together, Sienna holding her backpack while Adrian cradled his daughter. Inside the apartment, the evening routine unfolded with a familiarity that made Sienna's chest ache. Bath time, pajamas, teeth brushing. One story that turned into three because Maya kept asking for just one more. Sienna watched from the doorway as Adrian tucked Maya in, marveling at how natural it all seemed. How right it felt to be standing here, part of this quiet domestic moment. Sienna? Maya's sleepy voice called out. Yeah, sweetie? Are you going to be here in the morning? Sienna glanced at Adrian, who nodded slightly. Yeah, I'll be here. Good. Maya yawned, already halfway to sleep. Love you. The words were casual, thrown out with the unselfconscious ease of a child who hadn't learned yet to guard her heart. But they hit Sienna like a freight train. Love you too, she whispered. When Maya was fully asleep, Adrian and Sienna retreated to the living room. They ended up on the couch again, which was becoming their default position. Adrian pulled Sienna against his chest, and she could feel his heartbeat under her ear. She's never said that to anyone except me and Mrs. Chen, Adrian said quietly. I know. It's a big deal. I know that too. Sienna tilted her head to look at him. Does it scare you? Terrifies me. He was being honest, as promised. Because if this doesn't work out, it's not just me who gets hurt. It's her too. Then we make sure it works out. Adrian smiled, but there was still sadness in it. I wish it were that simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated. Sienna sat up, turning to face him fully. Look, I get it. Your friends are worried. You're worried. Hell, I'm worried too. But we can either spend all our energy being afraid of what might go wrong, or we can actually try to make this work. Trying isn't always enough. It's all we've got. She took his hands. I can't promise that I'll never mess up, that work won't get crazy again, or that I won't have to make hard choices about my time. But I can promise that I'll always come back to you, that you and Maya will always matter to me, that I'm not going anywhere. Adrian pulled her back against him, held her tight. Okay. I'm choosing to believe you. Good, because I'm choosing to stay. They fell asleep there on the couch again, wrapped around each other like they were afraid to let go. And in the morning, when Maya came bouncing out asking if they could make pancakes together, Sienna was there, just like she'd promised, just like she intended to keep being there, no matter how many people doubted them or how hard it got. Because this messy, complicated, beautiful thing they were building was worth fighting for. Even if no one else understood it yet, Sienna knew. And that was enough. The pancakes turned out lopsided and slightly burned on one side, but Maya declared them the best breakfast ever. She insisted on pouring her own syrup, which resulted in a puddle on her plate that threatened to overflow onto the table. Adrian reached over to steady her hand, and Sienna found herself watching the small gesture with something that felt dangerously close to contentment. Can we go to the zoo today? Maya asked through a mouthful of pancake. Chew first, baby. then talk. Adrian glanced at Sienna. You have plans? She should have. Sunday was usually her catch-up day, the time she used to plow through the work that didn't fit into the regular week. Her laptop was sitting in her apartment across the hall, emails accumulating like snow. But looking at Maya's hopeful face, at Adrian's careful expression that said he wouldn't pressure her either way, Sienna made a choice. No plans, she said. Zoo sounds perfect. Maya's whoop of excitement was loud enough to probably wake the neighbors, but neither adult had the heart to shush her. They spent the day wandering past enclosures, Maya dragging them from exhibit to exhibit with the boundless energy of a 7-year-old. She wanted to see everything, know everything, her questions coming faster than either of them could answer. Why do elephants have trunks? How do giraffes sleep? Can penguins fly? Adrian fielded most of them with the patience of someone who'd been doing this for years, while Sienna learned to say, I don't know, let's find out, without feeling like she was failing some test. At the tiger exhibit, Maya pressed her face against the glass, mesmerized. They're so big, she breathed. And beautiful, Sienna added, standing beside her. Daddy says beauty's not everything. He says what matters is what's inside. Adrian, standing slightly behind them, looked mildly embarrassed. I was talking about people, not tigers. Works for tigers too, Maya said matter-of-factly. The sign says they're endangered because people killed too many. That's not nice. No, it's not. Maya turned suddenly, looking up at Sienna with those serious eyes she sometimes got. Do you think people can be endangered too? The question caught Sienna off guard. What do you mean? Like when someone's lonely or sad, are they endangered? Adrian crouched down to Maya's level. That's a really smart question, baby. What made you think of that? Maya shrugged, suddenly shy. Emma's mom left, like my mom did. And Emma cries sometimes at school. I think maybe she's endangered. Sienna felt her chest tighten. She looked at Adrian, saw him struggling with what to say, how to explain the complicated realities of adult pain to a child who was already carrying too much understanding for her age. I think people can feel endangered, Sienna said carefully, when they're hurting and they feel alone. But the good thing about people is we can help each other. We can be there for each other in ways that tigers can't. Like how you help Daddy. Like that, yeah. And how Daddy helps you? Sienna smiled. Exactly like that. Maya seemed satisfied with this answer. She turned back to the tigers, pressing her hands against the glass. I'm going to help Emma tomorrow. Make sure she knows she's not endangered. After the zoo, they stopped for ice cream even though it was too close to dinner. Maya got chocolate chip and managed to get it all over her face within 30 seconds. Adrian had vanilla, boring and practical. Sienna ordered mint chocolate chip and immediately regretted it when Maya informed her that mint was for toothpaste, not ice cream. Some people like mint, Sienna defended. Weird people, Maya said, but she was giggling. They walked back to the car, sticky and tired, Maya between them holding both their hands. She swung their arms, making them lift her up every few steps. It was so normal, so perfectly ordinary, that Sienna almost forgot about the conversation with Derek the day before. Almost forgot about all the reasons this shouldn't work. Then her phone rang. She saw her CFO's name on the screen and her stomach dropped. Daniel never called on Sundays unless something was seriously wrong. I need to take this, she said apologetically. Adrian nodded, taking Maya ahead to the car, while Sienna hung back. What's wrong? She asked without preamble. We have a problem. Daniel's voice was tight. The acquisition team just got wind that our main competitor is making a counteroffer, substantially higher than ours. If we don't respond by tomorrow morning, we lose the deal. Sienna closed her eyes. This deal had been 6 months in the making, represented a major expansion into the East Coast market. Losing it would be catastrophic. How much higher? Daniel named a figure that made her wince. We can match it, but it'll require board approval. Emergency meeting. I've already started making calls. When? Tonight, 8 o'clock. Sienna looked toward the parking lot where Adrian was buckling Maya into her car seat, both of them laughing about something. She'd promised to make dinner with them tonight. Maya had already announced she wanted to make tacos, her favorite. Sienna, you there? Yeah, I'm here. She took a breath. Set up the meeting. I'll be there. When she got to the car, Adrian took one look at her face and knew. Work? Emergency board meeting. I have to go in tonight. Maya's face fell. But you said we'd make tacos. I know, sweetie. I'm sorry. Something came up that I can't postpone. You always have something that comes up. There was no accusation in Maya's voice, just resignation, like she'd already learned that adults made promises they couldn't keep. The words hit harder than Derek's hostility had. Sienna crouched down to Maya's level. You're right, and I hate that, but I promise I'll make it up to you. Next Sunday, we'll make tacos and anything else you want. Deal? Maya was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Okay. The drive back was subdued. Maya fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day. Adrian drove in silence, his expression neutral in that careful way that meant he was feeling too much to show any of it. Say it, Sienna said quietly. Say what? Whatever you're thinking. Adrian kept his eyes on the road. I'm not thinking anything. Liar. He sighed. I'm thinking Derek was right, that this is always going to be the pattern. Work comes first. It's not like that, isn't it? He glanced at her briefly. I'm not blaming you, Sienna. I know this is important, but from where I'm sitting, every time we make plans, there's about a 50-50 chance you're going to cancel. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. He pulled into their parking lot, the same place where everything had started months ago. Look, I get it. You run a company, you have responsibilities, but so do I. And mine includes making sure my daughter doesn't learn that the people she cares about always choose something else over her. The words stung because they were accurate. Sienna wanted to argue, to defend herself, but she couldn't. Not when Maya was right there, a small reminder of every broken promise. I don't know how to fix this, she admitted. Neither do I. Adrian put the car in park, turned to face her. But we need to figure it out, because this isn't sustainable for any of us. Sienna left for the board meeting with his words ringing in her ears. She sat through 3 hours of heated discussion, negotiated a counteroffer that would hopefully secure the deal, and drove home after midnight feeling hollowed out. When she finally collapsed into her own bed in her empty apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing something more important than any acquisition. The next week was brutal. The deal negotiations consumed everything, 14-hour days bleeding into 16, then 18. Sienna barely saw Adrian except in passing, brief exchanges in the hallway where they were both too tired to do more than acknowledge each other's existence. Maya had stopped asking when Sienna was coming over, which somehow hurt more than the asking had. On Thursday night, Sienna got home at 10 to find a note under her door. Adrian's handwriting again, but briefer this time. Maya asked if you were mad at her. I told her no. Please prove me right. Sienna stood in her dark apartment, still wearing her coat, and felt something crack. She'd been so focused on saving the deal that she hadn't noticed she was destroying something else in the process. She knocked on Adrian's door even though it was late, even though she knew she was probably waking them. Adrian answered in his pajamas, looking exhausted. Hey, is Maya asleep? Yeah, has been for a couple hours. He stepped back to let her in. You okay? No. Sienna handed him the note. When did she ask that? Yesterday, after I picked her up from school. Adrian rubbed his face. She said you used to come over all the time and now you don't, and she wanted to know if she did something wrong. What did you tell her? The truth, that you're dealing with work stuff, that it has nothing to do with her. He paused. But I don't think she believed me. Sienna sank onto the couch. I'm screwing this up. Everything Derek said, he was right. Derek's an ass. He's an ass who is telling the truth. She looked at Adrian. I don't know how to do this. Balance everything. Be what you need and what Maya needs and still be good at my job. Adrian sat down beside her. You want the honest answer? I don't think you can. Not the way things are now. So what do I do? I don't know. That's not my decision to make. He took her hand. But I do know that Maya's getting attached to you, and if you can't actually be present in her life, it's going to hurt her. Bad. And you? What about what it's doing to you? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I miss you. Even when you're here, I miss you. Because you're not really here. You're always half somewhere else, thinking about work or checking your phone or just mentally checked out. He squeezed her hand. And I don't know how to compete with that. You're not competing with anything. It feels like I am. He met her eyes. Sienna, I love you.
But I can't keep doing this dance where I pretend it's okay that you're never fully here, where I make excuses to Maya about why you canceled again, where I lie to myself that this is enough. The words landed like a punch. What are you saying? I'm saying something needs to change. Either you figure out a way to actually be in this relationship, or we need to be honest that it's not going to work.
Sienna felt panic rising in her chest.
You're giving me an ultimatum? I'm telling you the truth.
Which is what we promised each other we'd do. Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. I can't keep being the understanding boyfriend who never asks for anything. And Maya can't keep being disappointed by someone she's starting to love. We both need more than that.
I'm trying. I know you are. But trying isn't the same as succeeding. He pulled his hand back, and the loss of contact felt significant. I need you to decide what you actually want. Not what sounds good or what you think you should want. What you actually want. And if that's your career more than it's us, then that's okay. But I need to know.
Sienna wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was being unfair, that relationships required patience and understanding, that she couldn't just upend her entire life overnight. But looking at his face, at the exhaustion and hurt written there, she realized he'd been patient, had been understanding, had been waiting for her to choose them, and she kept choosing something else.
I need time, she said.
How much time?
I don't know. The acquisition should close by next week. After that,
there'll be something else. Adrian said it without anger, just tired certainty. There's always something else, Sienna. That's how your job works. He wasn't wrong. Even as he spoke, part of her brain was cataloging the next crisis, the next deadline, the next thing that would demand her attention. It never stopped. It never would.
I don't want to lose you, she said quietly.
Then don't. Adrian stood up, signaling the conversation was over. Figure out what you need to figure out. I'll be here. But I can't wait forever. Sienna left his apartment feeling like she was walking through water. Everything seemed harder suddenly, heavier. She made it back to her own place and sat in the dark, staring at her phone. Emails were still coming in, even at this hour. Her board chair wanted a status update. Her legal team had questions about the contract terms. Her assistant had flagged 3 urgent items for tomorrow. She could answer them all right now. Could work through the night like she'd done countless times before. Could prove that she was indispensable, irreplaceable, exactly as driven and committed as everyone expected her to be. Or she could choose something different. Sienna turned off her phone. The next morning, she called an emergency meeting with her executive team. Daniel looked worried when they all assembled in the conference room, probably expecting bad news about the acquisition.
The deal's fine, Sienna said, sitting at the head of the table. This is about something else, about how we're running this company and what that's costing us. Her CTO, Rachel, frowned. I don't understand. I've been working 70-hour weeks for the last 3 months. You've all been working similar hours. We're burning out our teams, ourselves, chasing growth at a pace that's not sustainable. Sienna looked around the table. And I'm realizing that I can't keep doing this, not at this intensity, not if I want to have any kind of life outside this office. You want to slow down growth? Daniel looked alarmed. I want to grow smarter, not faster. Sienna pulled out the presentation she'd spent all night preparing. I'm proposing we restructure our management team, bring in a COO who can handle day-to-day operations, delegate more authority to department heads, actually use the people we've hired instead of trying to do everything ourselves. Rachel was nodding slowly. That could work, but it would mean giving up some control. I know. It was the hardest admission Sienna had ever made. But I'm starting to realize that control isn't the same as leadership. And if I keep insisting on micromanaging every decision, I'm going to lose the things that matter more than any quarterly target. They spent 3 hours hammering out details. By the end, Sienna had commitment to hire a COO within 60 days, redistribute responsibilities across the exec team, and implement policies that would prevent the kind of unsustainable work culture they'd normalized. One more thing, Sienna said as they were wrapping up. I'm taking next Friday off, and every Friday after that until we get staffed properly. No meetings, no calls, no emergencies unless the building is literally on fire. Daniel raised his eyebrows. Fridays are usually our busiest day. Then we'll handle it on Thursday or Monday, but Fridays are off limits. She met each of their eyes. I'm serious about this, about changing how we work.
and it starts with me actually modeling what I'm asking for. After the meeting, Sienna felt lighter than she had in months. She still had 1,000 things to do, still had the acquisition to close and teams to manage and decisions to make. But for the first time, she could see a path forward that didn't require sacrificing everything else. She texted Adrian, "Can we talk tonight, after Maya's in bed?" His response came quickly. "Yeah, come over." The wait felt endless. Sienna tried to work but couldn't concentrate. She kept rehearsing what she wanted to say, how to explain the changes she was making without sounding like she was just offering more empty promises. When she finally knocked on Adrian's door at 9, her heart was racing. He let her in without a word. The apartment was quiet, Maya asleep. They sat on the couch, that familiar position, but the comfort was missing. There was distance between them now, carefully maintained. "I made some decisions," Sienna said. "About work, about how I want to structure my life." Adrian waited, his expression guarded. "I'm hiring a COO, redistributing responsibilities across my team, taking Fridays off." The words came out in a rush. "And I know that doesn't solve everything overnight, but it's a start. It's me actually trying to build a life that has room for more than just work." "Why now?" "Because you were right, about all of it." Sienna forced herself to meet his eyes. "I was choosing work every time, telling myself I could balance everything when really I was just half-assing both, and that's not fair to you or Maya, or even to myself." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "This sounds good, Sienna, but I've heard you make promises before." "I know, and I've broken most of them." She took a breath. "So I'm not going to make promises. I'm just going to show you, week by week, day by day. I'm going to prove that I can actually do this. And if you can't, then I'll be honest about it, instead of pretending and disappointing you anyway." She moved closer, closing some of the distance between them. "Adrian, I love you and I love Maya, and I'm tired of letting my job be the excuse for not showing up for the people who actually matter. What if there's another emergency, another deal that requires your attention? Then I'll handle it during work hours, or I'll delegate, or I'll accept that I can't be everywhere at once and make a choice about what's actually most important." Sienna reached for his hand. "I'm not saying I'll be perfect, but I'm saying I'll try, really try. Not just give it lip service and then do the same thing I've always done." Adrian studied their joined hands. "I want to believe you, so believe me, or don't, and just watch what I do instead." She squeezed his fingers. "Either way, I'm making these changes, because even if you decide you can't do this anymore, I need to, for myself." Something in Adrian's expression softened. "I don't want to break up with you." "Then don't." "But I need to see change, real change." "You will." Sienna said it with more certainty than she felt. "Starting tomorrow, I'm taking the afternoon off to spend with Maya, if she'll still have me." "She will. She's been asking about you every day." "And you? Will you have me?" Adrian pulled her closer, finally closing the distance between them. "Yeah, I'll have you." He kissed her, and it felt different than before. Less desperate, more certain, like they'd crossed some threshold that had been blocking them and found solid ground on the other side. Over the next 2 weeks, Sienna proved she meant it. She showed up for Maya's school event on Thursday afternoon, took Friday off to have lunch with Adrian while Maya was at school, was home by 6 every night that week. She missed one board meeting because it conflicted with family dinner, and the world didn't end. Her team handled the issue without her, sent her a brief summary, moved on. It wasn't perfect. She still checked email too often, still had moments of panic when she thought about everything she wasn't personally managing. But Adrian noticed the effort, and more importantly, Maya did. "You've been here a lot," Maya said one Saturday morning while they were making pancakes. Again. They'd made pancakes approximately 17 times in the last month, but Maya never seemed to tire of them. "I have," Sienna agreed. "Is that okay?" "It's really okay." Maya smiled, gap-toothed and genuine. "It's like you live here now." Sienna glanced at Adrian, who was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Not exactly, sweetie. I still have my own apartment." "But you could live here. There's space." "Maya," Adrian started. "What?" "There is. Sienna could have the guest room, or she could share with you." Maya said this last part with the casual directness of a child who hadn't yet learned what should and shouldn't be said out loud. Adrian's face went red. That's not something we're talking about right now. Why not? Because it's complicated. Everything's complicated with grown-ups. Maya turned her attention back to the pancake batter. I think it'd be nice if Sienna lived here. Then she'd be here all the time and we wouldn't have to miss her. The statement hung in the air. Adrian looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. Sienna felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. I think that'd be nice too, she said quietly. Maya beamed. Adrian looked at Sienna with wide eyes, like she'd just detonated a bomb in the middle of his kitchen. Later, after breakfast, after Maya had run off to play, Adrian pulled Sienna aside. You can't just say things like that in front of her, he said, but there was no real heat in it. Why not? It's true. Sienna, we've been together for 3 months. That's way too soon to talk about moving in together. Says who? Says every rational person ever. But Adrian was smiling slightly. You're serious? You actually want to live here? Sienna looked around the small apartment, at the drawings taped to the walls and the toys scattered across the floor and the general chaos of a life being actively lived. It was nothing like her sleek, organized apartment across the hall. It was messy and loud and completely impractical. I think I do, she said. Not tomorrow, but eventually, when it makes sense. When would it make sense? I don't know. When we're ready, when Maya's ready, when it stops being scary and starts being obvious. She moved closer to him. I'm not saying we need to rush anything, but I am saying that I can actually see a future here. With you. With Maya. And that's new for me. Adrian wrapped his arms around her. It's new for me too. The seeing a future part. Is it good new or terrifying new? Both. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Definitely both. They stood like that for a while, wrapped around each other in the messy kitchen, and Sienna felt something settle in her chest. This was what she'd been missing without knowing it. Not perfection or careful planning or everything going smoothly. Just this. The willingness to try, to build something imperfect together, to show up even when it was hard. The acquisition closed the following Tuesday. Sienna's company officially expanded to the East Coast, securing their position as a major player in the AI healthcare space. It should have been the culmination of months of work, the validation of every sacrifice she'd made. Instead, Sienna sat through the celebratory board meeting feeling mostly relieved that it was over. When her board chair suggested they immediately start pursuing the next acquisition, she surprised everyone by saying no. We need to consolidate, she said firmly. Get the new operations running smoothly before we chase the next thing. I'm proposing we take at least 6 months before pursuing any new major initiatives. There was pushback, of course. There always was. But Sienna held her ground and eventually they agreed. 6 months to breathe, to stabilize, to actually run the company they'd built instead of constantly pursuing the next thing. She left the office at 4 that afternoon, something she hadn't done in years. Picked up Maya from school with Adrian, listened to her chatter about the science project on butterflies that was finally due. They went to the park, the 3 of them, and Sienna pushed Maya on the swings while Adrian sat on a bench pretending to read, but mostly just watching them. Higher, Maya shrieked. Make me touch the sky. Sienna pushed harder, and Maya's laughter echoed across the playground. When the little girl finally tired of the swings, she ran off to the slide, leaving Sienna to collapse on the bench next to Adrian. You're good with her, he said. I'm learning. Sienna watched Maya climb the ladder. She makes it easy. She really does. Adrian took Sienna's hand. Can I ask you something? Always? Do you miss it? The intensity of before? The constant work? Sienna thought about it honestly. Sometimes. There's a rush to it, being that busy, feeling that important. Like if you stop for even a second, everything will fall apart. But it was killing me, slowly, and I didn't even realize it until I had a reason to stop. She squeezed his hand. This is better. Harder in some ways because I have to actually deal with real life instead of hiding in work. But better. Adrian smiled. I'm glad you stopped hiding. Me too. Maya ran back over, sweaty and grass-stained and absolutely delighted with herself. Can we get ice cream? We had ice cream last week, Adrian said. That was last week. This is this week. Totally different. Sienna laughed. Her logic is sound. Don't encourage her. But Adrian was already standing up, already giving in. Fine, ice cream, but you're eating actual dinner first. Deal. They walked to the ice cream shop 3 blocks over, Maya between them again, swinging their hands. Sienna realized this had become their thing, this small gesture of connection. She wondered if Maya knew how much it meant to both adults or if it was just natural to her. Either way, Sienna held on tight. At the ice cream shop, they ran into Keiko and her daughter. The woman's eyes widened slightly when she saw them together, but her smile was genuine. Hey guys, didn't expect to see you here. Ice cream emergency, Adrian said. You know how it is. Keiko's daughter and Maya immediately started comparing their favorite flavors, leaving the adults to make awkward small talk. I heard the deal closed, Keiko said to Sienna. Congratulations. Thanks. It was a long process. I bet. Keiko hesitated, then added, Look, I want to apologize for the party. Derek was out of line, and we should have shut him down faster. It's fine. He was protecting Adrian. He was being a judgmental ass. Keiko glanced at Adrian. For what it's worth, I can see you're actually trying. That matters. It was a small olive branch, but Sienna took it. Thanks. That means a lot. After they got their ice cream, they found a table outside. Maya was deep in explanation about the difference between soft serve and regular ice cream, a distinction that apparently mattered tremendously to 7-year-olds. Sienna's phone buzzed. She glanced at it instinctively, saw her CFO's name, and felt the familiar pull. Then she looked at Maya's animated face, at Adrian watching her with gentle eyes, and made a choice. She turned the phone off without reading the message. Everything okay? Adrian asked. Everything's perfect, Sienna said, and meant it. They finished their ice cream as the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Maya declared it looked like a painting, then insisted they needed to go home and recreate it with her watercolors. Adrian groaned good-naturedly about the mess this would create, but he was already gathering their trash, already ready to give Maya whatever she wanted. Walking home, Sienna felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not the rush of closing a deal or the validation of a successful meeting. Something quieter, but deeper. Something that felt like belonging. I love you, she said to Adrian, quiet enough that Maya couldn't hear. He smiled, squeezed her hand. Love you too. And for the first time since that night in the parking lot, Sienna let herself believe that this could actually work. Not because it was easy or perfect or made sense on paper, but because they were both choosing it, day after day, moment after moment. Because love wasn't about finding someone who fit perfectly into your existing life. It was about building a new life together, messy and complicated and real. They had a long way to go still. More obstacles to face, more doubts to overcome, more moments where work and family would collide and she'd have to choose. But standing there in the fading light, sticky with ice cream and surrounded by laughter, Sienna knew which choice she'd make. Every single time, she'd choose this. The watercolor painting session turned into exactly the disaster Adrian had predicted. Maya had somehow gotten paint on the ceiling, which shouldn't have been physically possible, and Sienna's shirt was now decorated with handprints in 3 different colors. Adrian stood in the doorway, surveying the damage with his arms crossed, trying to look stern and failing completely. How did you get paint on the light fixture? He asked. Maya looked up at the ceiling, genuinely puzzled. I don't know, it just happened. Paint doesn't just happen to end up 8 feet in the air. This paint did. Sienna was trying not to laugh, which made her shoulders shake in a way that gave her away immediately. Adrian shot her a look that said she wasn't helping, but his mouth was twitching at the corners. All right, disaster artist, he said to Maya. Bath time, now. But I'm not done with my sunset. Your sunset is done with you. Come on. Maya grumbled but went, leaving blue footprints across the floor as she walked. Adrian grabbed cleaning supplies from under the sink, and Sienna automatically started helping, wiping paint off the table while he tackled the floor. You don't have to clean up, Adrian said. This is kind of a regular occurrence around here. I want to. Sienna scrubbed at a particularly stubborn orange splotch. Besides, I encouraged the painting. I'm complicit. They worked in comfortable silence, the sounds of Maya's bath running in the background. It was domestic in a way that should have felt mundane, but instead felt significant. Like they were building something real in these small moments, not just the big declarations, but the everyday mess of actual life. "I've been thinking about what Maya said," Adrian said after a while. "About you moving in." Sienna's hand stilled on the table. "Yeah? It's crazy. We barely know each other. It's way too soon." He paused. "But I can't stop thinking about it." "Me neither." Adrian sat back on his heels, looking at her. "What if we tried it? Not permanently, just a test run. See if we can actually live together without killing each other." "How would that work?" "You stay here more nights than you stay at your place. We figure out routines, boundaries, how to share space. If it's terrible, you've still got your apartment to retreat to." He stood up, moved closer to where she was standing. "If it's not terrible, maybe in a few months we talk about making it official." Sienna felt her heart rate pick up. "What about Maya? Won't it confuse her if I'm here sometimes but not all the time?" "Maybe. Or maybe it'll help her adjust gradually instead of everything changing overnight." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Sienna had learned meant he was nervous. "I don't know the right answer. I just know I want to try." "Okay. Okay? Let's try it." Sienna said it before she could overthink it. "I'll start bringing stuff over this week. We'll figure it out as we go." Adrian's smile was bright enough to light the whole apartment. He kissed her right there in the middle of the paint-splattered kitchen, and Sienna felt like maybe they were actually going to pull this off. The transition wasn't seamless. Sienna had lived alone for almost a decade, had built her life around solitude and her own schedule. Living with Adrian and Maya meant noise at 6 in the morning, negotiations over bathroom time, someone else's mess mixed with her own. It meant Maya's toys migrating into her workspace, Adrian's coffee cups appearing on every flat surface, family dinners when all she wanted was to collapse in silence. It also meant waking up next to someone who knew how she took her coffee, coming home to people who were genuinely happy to see her, never eating dinner alone. It meant Maya crawling into bed between them on Saturday mornings, Adrian's hand finding hers under the table during homework sessions, inside jokes that only the three of them understood. 2 weeks into the experiment, Sienna's mother called. She'd been avoiding this conversation, knowing exactly how it would go. Her mother was a corporate attorney who'd sacrificed everything for her career and expected Sienna to do the same. The idea of her daughter playing house with a struggling single father would not go over well. "You've been dodging my calls," her mother said without preamble. "I've been busy." "Too busy for your own mother? That's new." A pause. "I heard about the acquisition. Congratulations. Though I also heard you turned down the follow-up opportunity. Want to explain that?" Sienna closed her eyes. Of course, her mother had sources on the board. "I'm consolidating. It's the smart move. It's the safe move. Since when do you play it safe?" "Since I realize there's more to life than constantly chasing the next deal." Her mother's silence was pointed. Then, carefully, "There's a rumor going around that you're seeing someone with a child." "It's not a rumor. I am." "Sienna, don't. Whatever you're about to say, just don't. I'm trying to protect you. You've worked too hard to throw it all away for some romance that's going to crash and burn the minute reality sets in." Sienna felt anger flare in her chest. "You don't know anything about my relationship. I know you. I know how you are when you fall for someone. You lose focus, make poor decisions, sacrifice your goals for temporary happiness." Her mother's voice softened slightly. "I don't want to see you make the same mistakes I did." "What mistakes?" "Your father." The admission seemed to cost her something. "I loved him completely. Restructured my entire career to accommodate his needs, his schedule, his dreams. And when he left anyway, I had lost 3 years of advancement and gained nothing but heartbreak." Sienna had never heard this story before. Her parents had divorced when she was young, her father moving across the country and slowly fading from her life. Her mother never talked about him, never explained what had happened. "This isn't the same," Sienna said quietly. "Isn't it? You're already changing your work patterns, turning down opportunities, prioritizing his needs over your career. How long until you're just another woman who sacrificed everything for a man who won't do the same for you?" "Adrian isn't asking me to sacrifice anything. These are my choices." "Choices you wouldn't be making if he wasn't in the picture." Sienna opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Because her mother wasn't entirely wrong. She was making different choices, restructuring her priorities, building a life that looked nothing like what she'd planned. But that wasn't sacrifice, it was evolution. "You're right," she said. "I am changing, but not because Adrian's making me, because I want to. Because the life I was living was hollow, and this one isn't. You think that now. Wait until the novelty wears off and you're stuck playing stepmother to someone else's child while watching younger competitors pass you by." The words hit hard, finding every insecurity Sienna had been trying to ignore. What if her mother was right? What if she was sacrificing too much, changing too fast, building her life around people who might not stay? "I have to go," Sienna said abruptly. "Sienna, wait." She hung up, sat in her car outside the apartment building, hands shaking, her mother's words echoing in her head. She'd left work early to pick up Maya from school, something she'd been doing twice a week now. Adrian had a deadline and needed the help. It was a small thing, a normal thing that partners did for each other. But was she becoming someone she didn't recognize? Reshaping herself to fit into Adrian's life in a way that would eventually hollow her out? Maya burst out of the school doors right on time, her backpack bouncing as she ran toward the car. She climbed into the back seat, already talking about her day before she'd even buckled in. "And then Emma said her dog had puppies, and maybe I could have one, but I told her we'd have to ask you and Daddy first because that's a big decision, and also I got an A on my spelling test, and Mrs. Robertson said, I'm improving in math, which is good because I hate math, but I'm trying anyway." Sienna drove on autopilot, making appropriate sounds while Maya chattered. When they got home, Adrian was still at his desk, headphones on, deep in whatever project he was working on. He glanced up when they entered, smiled, pulled off the headphones. "How was school, baby?" "Good. I got an A." Maya waved the test paper like a flag. "That's my girl. I'm proud of you." He looked at Sienna, and his expression shifted. "You okay?" "Fine. Just tired." Adrian didn't look convinced, but Maya was already dragging him over to see her test, and the moment passed. Sienna retreated to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and tried to remember who she'd been before all of this. Before Adrian and Maya and domestic routines that felt both wonderful and terrifying. Her phone buzzed. A text from her new COO, someone she'd hired specifically to take pressure off her own shoulders. There was a problem with one of their healthcare partners, a contract dispute that needed attention. 6 months ago, Sienna would have dropped everything and handled it personally. Now she typed back a response, delegating it to her legal team, trusting them to manage it without her. It felt wrong and right at the same time. Adrian found her 20 minutes later, still sitting in the same position. "Maya's doing homework," he said, closing the door behind him. "Want to tell me what's actually wrong?" "My mother called." Understanding crossed his face. "Ah. She thinks I'm making a mistake, thinks I'm sacrificing my career for a relationship that's going to fail anyway." Sienna looked up at him. "And part of me wonders if she's right." Adrian sat down beside her. "Are you sacrificing your career?" "I don't know. I'm definitely changing it. Restructuring everything I built to make room for this. For us." She gestured vaguely at the apartment. "What if I'm giving up too much? What if 5 years from now I resent you for it? Then you resent me, and we deal with it." Adrian said it simply. "Sienna, I can't promise you that this will work forever. I can't promise you won't have regrets. But I can promise that I'm not asking you to be anything other than yourself." "But I'm not myself anymore. I'm different." "You're evolving. That's not the same as losing yourself." He took her hand. "And for what it's worth, I'm changing too. I'm learning to let someone in again, to trust that you're not going to leave when things get hard. That's terrifying for me. But I'm doing it anyway because you're worth it." Sienna felt tears burning behind her eyes. What if my mother's right about the rest of it? What if I'm just another woman sacrificing everything for a man who won't do the same? "Am I asking you to sacrifice everything?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What do you want, Sienna? Not what your mother wants, not what you think you should want. What do you actually want?" The question was simple. The answer was complicated. "I want both," she admitted. "I want my career, and I want this. I want to be successful, and I want to come home to you and Maya. I want to prove I can have everything without losing myself in the process." "Then do that. It's not that simple. Isn't it?" Adrian shifted to face her fully. "You're acting like it's either or, like you have to choose between your career and our relationship. But what if you don't?
What if you can build a life that has room for both?
That's what I'm trying to do. I know, and you're doing it, but you're also second-guessing every choice, waiting for proof that you're failing at one or the other. He squeezed her hand. Your mother's wrong about one thing. This isn't sacrifice. It's balance. And yeah, it's messy and imperfect, and sometimes you're going to feel pulled in too many directions. But that's life. That's what it means to care about more than one thing. Sienna leaned into him, feeling some of the tension drain from her shoulders. When did you get so wise? I've had a lot of practice at feeling like I'm failing at everything. He kissed the top of her head. The trick is realizing that feeling like you're failing and actually failing are different things. They sat together in the quiet bedroom while Maya did homework in the living room, and dinner waited to be made, and life continued around them. Sienna realized that this was what her mother had never understood, that love didn't have to mean losing yourself, that building a life with someone could make you stronger, not weaker. Her phone buzzed again. Another work issue, another crisis that needed attention. Sienna looked at it, then looked at Adrian.
I need to make a call, she said. It'll take maybe 20 minutes. Okay, I'll start dinner. I'll help after, I promise. Adrian smiled. I know you will. Sienna took the call, handled the crisis, and was back in the kitchen in 18 minutes. She found Adrian attempting to cook something that involved more pans than seemed necessary, and Maya setting the table with intense concentration. I'm sous chef, Maya announced. That means I help, but Daddy's in charge. Sounds important. It is. I have to make sure the forks go on the left. Sienna washed her hands and joined Adrian at the stove. What are we making? Stir fry. Or my version of it, which will probably be terrible, but at least it's vegetables. Need help? Yeah, can you chop the broccoli? They fell into an easy rhythm, working around each other in the small kitchen. Maya kept up a running commentary about proper table setting techniques, apparently learned from a book at school. The normalcy of it all settled something in Sienna's chest. This was her life now. Conference calls and vegetables, career wins and family dinners, being pulled in multiple directions and somehow making it work anyway. It wasn't what her mother wanted for her. It wasn't what she'd planned for herself. But it was real. And it was hers. The stir-fry was actually decent, which surprised everyone, including Adrian. They ate together at the small dining table, Maya talking between bites about the puppy situation and whether they should consider getting a pet. Absolutely not, Adrian said. We can barely keep plants alive. But puppies are different than plants. They're harder than plants. They need walking and feeding and training. I would do all of that, Maya promised. You say that now, but I've heard this speech before about the fish, remember? And who ended up taking care of the fish? Maya had the grace to look sheepish. You did, but the fish was boring. A puppy would be fun. A puppy would be expensive and time-consuming, and we're not getting one. Maya turned to Sienna with pleading eyes. What do you think? Sienna felt both adults' attention shift to her. This was a test, though probably not an intentional one. Would she side with Maya to be the fun one? Would she back up Adrian's parenting decision, even though she had no official authority here? I think, she said carefully, that puppies are a lot of work. And I think your dad knows what he's talking about when he says the timing isn't right. Maya's face fell. So that's a no? That's a not right now. Maybe when you're older and can actually handle all the responsibility. That's what Daddy always says. When you're older. Maya pushed broccoli around her plate. Everything good is when I'm older. Adrian and Sienna exchanged glances over her head. He looked grateful for the backup, but also tired, the exhaustion of being the only parent who had to say no written across his face. After dinner, while Adrian helped Maya with homework, Sienna did the dishes and thought about her mother's words, about sacrifice and resentment and losing yourself, about the fear that love would cost more than it gave. But standing in this small kitchen, washing plates while listening to Adrian patiently explain fractions in the next room, Sienna didn't feel like she was losing anything. She felt like she was finally finding something she'd been missing. Her phone rang. Her mother again. This time, Sienna answered. I'm sorry, her mother said immediately. I was too harsh earlier. You're an adult. You get to make your own choices. Thank you. But I meant what I said. I worry about you. About what happens when the reality of this situation sets in. Sienna took a breath. Mom, I know you're trying to protect me, but the reality is already here. I'm living with a man who has a 7-year-old daughter. I'm helping with homework and doing dishes and having conversations about whether we should get a puppy. This is my life now, and I'm happy. Are you? Or are you just caught up in playing house?
I'm genuinely happy. Happier than I've been in years. Sienna dried her hands, moved to where she could see into the living room. Adrian was bent over Maya's homework, their heads close together. And yeah, it's scary. Yeah, I'm changing, but I'm not losing myself. I'm just becoming someone who has room for more than work. Her mother was quiet for a long moment, then softer. I never learned how to do that, how to be successful and still have a life outside the office.
I know. And I'm sorry that happened to you. But I'm not you. Adrian's not Dad, and I'm going to figure out how to make this work. I hope you're right. Me too. They talked for a few more minutes, carefully navigating around the bigger issues. When Sienna hung up, she felt lighter. Not because her mother approved, but because Sienna had defended her choices out loud, had claimed this life as her own instead of apologizing for it.
3 months into living together, Sienna's company was approached with an opportunity that should have been perfect. A major hospital network wanted to partner with them, which would mean significant expansion and a huge revenue increase. The catch was that it would require Sienna to relocate to Boston for at least 6 months to oversee the implementation. Her board was thrilled. Her exec team started making plans, and Sienna sat in the meeting feeling like the ground was shifting under her feet. This is incredible, her CFO was saying. Exactly the kind of partnership we've been working toward. When would I need to be in Boston? Sienna asked. Ideally, within the month. They want someone senior on site full-time during the rollout. Can't we send the COO? They specifically asked for you. It's your vision they want to implement. Of course it was. Sienna had spent years building her reputation, making herself indispensable. Now that was coming back to haunt her. I need time to think about it, she said. Her board chair frowned. What's there to think about? This is exactly the kind of opportunity we've been positioning for. I have personal considerations that need to be factored in. The frown deepened. Personal considerations shouldn't interfere with business decisions of this magnitude. Sienna felt irritation spark. They're not interfering. They're part of the equation. I'll have an answer by tomorrow. She left the meeting early, drove home in the middle of the afternoon. Found Adrian at his desk, Maya at school. He looked up when she entered, took one look at her face, and saved his work. What happened? Sienna told him about the opportunity, about Boston, about the choice she was facing. Adrian listened without interrupting, his expression carefully neutral. 6 months, he said when she finished. At least. Could be longer. That's a long time. I know. Sienna sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what to do. What do you want to do? I want to not have to choose. I want to take the opportunity and stay here with you and Maya. I want both. Adrian moved to sit beside her. But that's not possible. No, it's not. They sat in silence. Sienna could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, all the implications spinning out. If she went to Boston, what happened to them? Long distance for 6 months? Maybe longer? Would their fragile new arrangement survive that? Would Maya understand why Sienna left? Would Adrian wait? What if we came with you? Adrian said quietly. Sienna turned to stare at him. What? To Boston. What if Maya and I came too? Adrian, you have a life here, a job. Maya has school and friends. I can work from anywhere. Maya can transfer schools. We'd figure it out. He took her hand. If this opportunity is important to you, if it's what you need for your career, then we'll make it work. You'd do that? Uproot your entire life? For you? Yeah. He said it simply, like it was obvious. Sienna, you've been restructuring your whole career to make room for us. You think I haven't noticed? You think I'm going to let you sacrifice this opportunity because you're afraid we can't handle 6 months in a different city? It's not just 6 months. It could be a year, maybe longer. Then it's a year or longer. Adrian squeezed her hand. I'm all in, remember? That means supporting your career, not just expecting you to always be the one who compromises. Sienna felt tears threatening. What about Maya? She's finally settled here, taking her away from her friends, her school. Kids are resilient. She'll adapt. He pulled Sienna closer.
And honestly, I think she'd be more upset if you left without us than if we all went together. You've really thought about this.
I've been thinking about it since you walked in looking like your world was ending. Adrian kissed her forehead. This is what partnerships look like. Sometimes I support you. Sometimes you support me. Sometimes we both have to make sacrifices. But we do it together. Sienna buried her face in his shoulder, overwhelmed by the enormity of what he was offering. I don't deserve you.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. He held her tight. So what do you say? Want to move to Boston with your makeshift family? It's crazy. Most good things are. Sienna pulled back to look at him. You're serious? You'd actually do this? I'm completely serious. Maya and I are portable. Your career opportunity isn't. Adrian smiled. Besides, Maya's always wanted to see snow. Boston has plenty of that.
We'd have to find a place to live, enroll Maya in a new school, figure out your work situation. All solvable problems. He cupped her face. The only question that matters is whether you want the job. Everything else we'll figure out. Sienna thought about it, really thought about it. The opportunity was massive, the kind of career-defining partnership that could cement her company's position for years. But it would mean uprooting everyone, dragging Adrian and Maya into her professional chaos, asking them to sacrifice stability for her ambition. What if you hate it there? She asked. What if Maya struggles? What if this ruins what we've built? What if it doesn't? Adrian countered. What if we go to Boston and have an amazing adventure? What if Maya thrives and I discover I actually like snow and you get to prove you can have both your career and your family? You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's terrifying. He kissed her softly. But I'd rather be terrified with you in Boston than comfortable and alone here. Sienna made her decision then, in Adrian's arms in the apartment they'd been building a life in. Not because it was easy or safe or what anyone expected, but because it was right. Okay, she said, let's go to Boston. Adrian's smile was bright enough to power the whole city. Yeah? Yeah. Let's do this crazy thing. He kissed her properly then, deep and certain and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, Sienna felt lighter than she had in days. This was what her mother had never understood. That love wasn't about one person sacrificing for another. It was about building something together, supporting each other's dreams, choosing each other over and over again. They told Maya that night over dinner. She was confused at first, then excited, then worried, cycling through emotions with the speed only a child could manage. But what about Emma, she asked, and Mrs. Robertson, and my butterfly project? You'll finish the butterfly project before we go, Adrian promised, and you can video chat with Emma, and Mrs. Robertson will write you a great recommendation for your new school. Will they have butterflies in Boston? Probably. Boston has lots of things. Maya considered this. Will we live in an apartment there too? Yeah, probably a bigger one than this. Adrian glanced at Sienna. We'll need more space. Can I have my own room? Definitely your own room. That seemed to seal the deal. Maya started listing all the things she'd need in her new room, her earlier worries forgotten in the excitement of planning. Sienna watched her, marveling at her resilience. Kids really were adaptable in ways adults forgot to be. Later, after Maya was asleep, Sienna and Adrian sat on the couch making lists. Schools to research, apartments to look at, logistics to figure out. It should have been overwhelming, but instead it felt like possibility. Thank you, Sienna said quietly, for being willing to do this. Thank me when we're actually in Boston and you're not sick of us yet. I'm not going to get sick of you. You say that now. Wait until we're in a new city where you're working insane hours and Maya's acting out because she misses her friends and I'm struggling to figure out where anything is. Adrian pulled her closer. It's going to be hard, probably harder than we're imagining. I know. But we'll figure it out. I know that too. They sat together in the quiet apartment, planning their impossible future. And Sienna realized that this was what courage looked like. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. Not certainty that everything would work out, but faith that they'd face whatever came together. Her phone buzzed with another email from her board, another detail that needed attention. Sienna glanced at it, then set the phone aside. It could wait until morning. Right now, she had more important things to focus on. like the man beside her who'd just agreed to upend his entire life for her career, like the little girl sleeping down the hall who'd somehow become family without either of them planning it, like the future they were building together, imperfect and messy, and absolutely worth fighting for. "I love you," she said to Adrian. "Love you too." He kissed her temple. "Even when you drag us across the country on wild adventures." Especially then. He laughed, and the sound filled the apartment with warmth. Sienna closed her eyes and let herself feel it. The fear and the hope and the terrifying certainty that they were doing exactly what they were supposed to do. Boston was waiting. Their future was waiting. And for the first time in her life, Sienna was ready to meet it head-on, not alone, but with the people who'd somehow become her home. Boston in November was colder than any of them had anticipated. Maya discovered snow for the first time during their second week there and spent an hour trying to catch flakes on her tongue before her lips turned blue and Adrian dragged her inside. Their new apartment in Cambridge was bigger than the old one, but somehow felt emptier, the unfamiliar walls echoing with the absence of the life they'd left behind. Sienna's work consumed her immediately. The hospital partnership was even more complex than she'd expected, requiring 18-hour days just to keep everything on track. She'd leave before Maya woke up and come home after she was asleep, catching glimpses of their new life only in the mess left behind. Maya's backpack by the door, Adrian's coffee cup in the sink, notes he'd leave her about Maya's day at the new school, whether she'd made friends yet, if she was adjusting. The answer, Sienna gathered from the increasingly terse notes, was not really. 3 weeks in, she came home at midnight to find Adrian still awake, sitting on the couch in the dark. "Hey," she said quietly, dropping her bag by the door. "You didn't have to wait up." "Wasn't waiting. Couldn't sleep." He didn't look at her, kept his eyes on the window where snow was starting to fall again. Maya cried herself to sleep tonight. Sienna's stomach dropped. Why? What happened? She misses home. Misses her friends. Misses the life we had before we came here. Adrian's voice was flat, carefully devoid of accusation. She asked me when we could go back. What did you tell her? That this is home now, that we're staying. He finally looked at Sienna, and the exhaustion in his face was startling. But I'm not sure I believe it anymore. Sienna sat down beside him, suddenly too tired to stand. Talk to me. I'm trying to make this work. I really am. But Maya's struggling at the new school. I can't find a rhythm with my work because I'm constantly interrupted by her needing me, and you're never here. He said it without anger, which somehow made it worse. I feel like we made a massive mistake. Adrian, and I know that's not what you want to hear. I know you're killing yourself at work trying to make this partnership succeed, but Sienna, we're drowning here, Maya and I don't know how to fix it. Sienna felt panic rising in her chest. What are you saying? That you want to go back? I'm saying something needs to change, because this isn't sustainable. Adrian ran his hands through his hair. Maybe we should have talked about this more before we jumped. Maybe I should have been more realistic about what moving here would actually look like. You said we'd figure it out. I thought we would. But I didn't account for how hard it would be to be the only parent in a new city where I don't know anyone, where Maya doesn't know anyone, while you're working the same insane hours you were trying to get away from back home. The accusation stung because it was true. Sienna had restructured her work life in California, had found balance, had been present. But the moment they'd moved to Boston, all those changes had evaporated. She'd fallen right back into old patterns, using work as an escape from the harder reality of building a life. I'm sorry, she said inadequately. I don't want you to be sorry. I want you to be here. Adrian's voice cracked slightly. Maya asked me today if you still loved us. Because you're always gone. And I didn't know what to say. Sienna felt like she'd been punched. Of course I still love you, both of you. Then show us. Because right now it feels like we gave up everything to follow you here, and you can't even make it home for dinner. The words hung between them, harsh and honest. Sienna wanted to defend herself, to explain about the partnership demands and the impossible timelines and the pressure from her board. But Adrian didn't need explanations. He needed her to actually be present in the life they were trying to build. You're right, she said finally. I've been hiding in work again, using it as an excuse not to deal with how hard this transition is. Why? Because I'm terrified. The admission came out raw. terrified that I dragged you both here and ruined everything. That Maya's going to hate me for taking her away from her life. That you're going to wake up one day and realize you made a mistake choosing me." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I didn't choose you once, Sienna. I choose you every day. Even when it's hard. Even when I'm exhausted and overwhelmed and wondering what the hell we were thinking. But I can't keep choosing someone who's not actually here." "I know. So what are we going to do about it?" Sienna took a shaky breath. "I'm going to talk to my team tomorrow. Set real boundaries. No more 18-hour days, no more missing dinner, no more using work to avoid the fact that our life here is hard." "Can you actually do that? Without the partnership falling apart?" "I don't know, but I have to try." She took his hand. "Because you and Maya matter more than any deal. And if I can't figure out how to be present for you both while still doing my job, then something's wrong with how I'm doing my job." Adrian squeezed her fingers. "I don't want you to fail at work. That's not what I'm asking for." "I know. You're asking me to be a partner, actually be here instead of just physically present." She moved closer to him. "And you're right to ask for that. I promised I'd changed, and then I came here and immediately reverted to my old patterns. That's not fair to either of you." "What about Maya? She's not going to magically adjust just because you're home for dinner." "Then we help her adjust. Together. Actually, together, not me showing up for an hour and pretending that's enough." Sienna thought about the little girl down the hall, crying herself to sleep in an unfamiliar room. She needs both of us right now. And I haven't been giving her that. They sat in the dark apartment, snow falling outside, the weight of their shared mistake pressing down on them. This was supposed to have been an adventure, a chance to prove they could make anything work as long as they were together. Instead, it had become a test they were failing. "I'm scared," Adrian admitted, "that we can't fix this, that we made the wrong choice coming here." "Maybe we did, but we're here now. So either we actually commit to making it work, or we admit defeat and go back." Sienna looked at him. "What do you want to do?" Adrian was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then he said, "I want to stay. I want us to figure this out, but I need you to meet me halfway." "I will, I promise. Real changes this time, not just words." "Okay." He pulled her into his arms and they held each other in the darkness. "We'll figure it out." "We'll figure it out," Sienna echoed, and this time she meant it. The next morning, Sienna called a meeting with her executive team. They gathered in the conference room looking curious and slightly worried, probably expecting another crisis. "We need to talk about how we're running this partnership," Sienna said without preamble, "because the current approach isn't working." Her COO frowned. "The implementation's on schedule. What's the problem?" "The problem is I'm here 18 hours a day, micromanaging every detail instead of actually leading. And that's not sustainable for me or for the company." She pulled up the organizational chart she'd spent half the night revising. "I'm redistributing responsibilities. Rachel, you're taking point on the technical integration. Daniel, you own the financial side. I'll handle strategy and relationship management with the hospital leadership, but I'm stepping back from daily operations." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Daniel said carefully, "Sienna, they hired us specifically because they wanted you running this. They hired us because they trust our expertise. That expertise doesn't disappear just because I'm not personally overseeing every meeting." She met each of their eyes. "I hired all of you because you're brilliant at what you do, so I'm actually going to let you do it, starting now." Rachel looked pleased. Daniel still looked worried. Her project manager looked relieved. "What brought this on?" Rachel asked. "Not that I'm complaining, but this is a pretty major shift from how you usually operate." Sienna thought about Adrian's exhausted face, about Maya crying herself to sleep, about the life she was supposed to be building falling apart while she hid in conference rooms. "I'm learning that being indispensable isn't the same as being effective," she said, "and I'm choosing to be effective instead." They spent the next 2 hours restructuring the workflow, establishing clear lines of authority, building redundancy into the system so that Sienna's absence wouldn't create bottlenecks. It felt wrong every step of the way, like she was abandoning ship. But she kept thinking about Adrian's words, about choosing partnership over control. She left the office at 4 that afternoon, earlier than she'd left in weeks. Picked up Maya from school herself, watching the little girl's face light up with surprise when she saw Sienna waiting instead of Adrian. "You came!" Maya dropped her backpack and ran over, throwing her arms around Sienna's waist. I came. Thought maybe we could do something fun before your dad has to make his terrible dinner. Maya giggled. His dinner's not that terrible. Liar. They went to a children's museum Maya had been asking about, spent 2 hours exploring exhibits and building structures and generally being ridiculous together. Sienna learned that Maya was struggling with reading in her new class, that she missed her friend Emma more than she admitted, that she was scared the other kids thought she was weird because of her California accent. You're not weird, Sienna said firmly. You're new. That's different. Being new feels like being weird. Yeah, it does, but it won't always feel that way. Eventually, you'll make friends, and Boston will start feeling like home. Maya leaned against her as they watched some kind of water exhibit. Do you think Daddy's mad we moved here? The question caught Sienna off guard. Why would you think that? Because he seems sad a lot and tired, and sometimes I hear him on the phone with Derek talking about how hard everything is. Maya's voice got small. I think maybe it's my fault. Sienna's heart broke. She pulled Maya close, trying to figure out how to explain adult complexities to a 7-year-old. It's not your fault, sweetie, not even a little bit. Your dad's adjusting just like you are. New city, new routines, trying to figure everything out. But he's not mad, and he definitely doesn't regret moving here. How do you know? Because he told me, and because he loves you more than anything in the world. He'd move to Antarctica if he thought it was best for you. Maya considered this. Antarctica would be cold. Colder than Boston. Then I'm glad we're here instead. They got home to find Adrian in the kitchen, looking stressed and surrounded by what appeared to be the ingredients for lasagna. You're home, he said, surprised. Left work early, thought I'd actually be here for dinner for once. Sienna kissed him. Need help? Desperately, I have no idea what I'm doing. Maya took over setting the table while Sienna and Adrian figured out the lasagna. It was a disaster in the making, layers sliding everywhere, and cheese refusing to cooperate, but they were laughing by the time it went into the oven. This is going to be terrible, Adrian predicted. Definitely. But we made it together, so it counts. They ate the terrible lasagna, and Maya declared it the best dinner ever, which was either a lie or a sign that her standards had dropped significantly. After dinner, Sienna helped with homework while Adrian cleaned up, and then they all watched a movie together, Maya wedged between them on the couch. It was normal, boring even, and Sienna realized she'd been so busy chasing extraordinary that she'd forgotten the value of ordinary. This was what she'd moved to Boston for. Not just the career opportunity, but this. Family dinners and homework help, and terrible lasagna. Over the next month, Sienna kept her promise. She was home by 6 most nights. Took Fridays completely off. Stopped checking email during dinner. Her team rose to the challenge, handling crises without her, making decisions she would have micromanaged before. The partnership didn't fall apart. In fact, it ran smoother with clear delegation and trust in her team's expertise. Maya slowly started to adjust, made a friend named Sophie who also loved butterflies, stopped crying at bedtime, started talking about Boston as home instead of the place they were temporarily stuck. Adrian found his rhythm too, connecting with other parents at Maya's school, establishing a routine that worked for his freelance schedule, rediscovering parts of himself that had gotten lost in the stress of the move. And gradually, the 3 of them became a family. Not the perfect television version, but the real kind. The kind that argued about whose turn it was to do dishes and made terrible lasagna and sometimes forgot to sign permission slips. The kind that showed up for each other anyway. 6 months after the move, Sienna's mother visited. She arrived at the apartment looking skeptical, like she expected to find evidence that Sienna had ruined her life. Instead, she found them making pancakes on a Saturday morning. Maya standing on a stool at the stove while Adrian supervised and Sienna set the table. It was chaotic and messy and nothing like the polished life her mother had imagined for her daughter. You're really doing this, her mother said, watching Maya flip a pancake with intense concentration. Doing what? Sienna asked. All of it. The relationship, the child, the domestic routine. She shook her head slightly. I didn't think you could pull it off. To be honest, I wasn't sure either. Her mother sat down at the table, accepted the coffee Adrian offered her. You seem happy. I am happy. Even with everything you gave up. Sienna thought about that. about the hours she wasn't working, the deals she'd delegated, the control she'd released. I didn't give anything up. I just reprioritized. And turns out the things I was prioritizing before weren't actually making me happy. And this does? The pancakes and the homework and the noise? Yeah, Mom, this does. Her mother was quiet for a moment, watching Maya successfully flip another pancake and cheer for herself. I was wrong about him, she said finally, nodding toward Adrian. About what this would cost you. You were scared for me, I get it. I was scared you'd make my mistakes, but you're not me, and he's not your father. She took a sip of coffee. You've built something good here, something real. It was as close to approval as Sienna had ever gotten from her mother. She took it, feeling something old and painful start to heal. After breakfast, her mother pulled her aside while Adrian and Maya were cleaning up. I need to apologize, she said, for trying to talk you out of this, for assuming you couldn't have both career and family, for projecting my failures onto your relationship. Mom, let me finish. I spent so many years believing that success meant sacrifice, that I had to choose between being good at my job and being good at life. And I passed that belief on to you, which wasn't fair. She looked at Sienna directly. You're proving there's another way, a better way. And I'm proud of you for that. Sienna felt tears threatening. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep choosing both. Keep proving that women don't have to give up everything to have anything. They hugged, awkward and unpracticed, but genuine. When her mother left later that day, Sienna felt lighter. Like she'd finally gotten permission to live the life she'd chosen instead of the one she was supposed to want. The hospital partnership officially launched in month 7. It was a massive success, transforming how the network handled patient data and care coordination. Sienna's company became the go-to name in healthcare AI, fielding calls from hospitals across the country wanting similar implementations. Her board wanted her to take on more. Bigger partnerships, faster growth, aggressive expansion. But Sienna had learned her lesson about chasing constant growth at the expense of everything else. We'll grow strategically, she told them, but we're not sacrificing quality or sustainability for speed, and I'm not sacrificing my life for quarterly targets. Some board members pushed back, but enough supported her that the decision held. Sienna had built enough credibility, enough success, that she could finally dictate terms instead of being dictated to. On a Friday evening in early spring, almost exactly a year after that night in the parking lot where everything had started, Adrian told Sienna he wanted to take her somewhere. He'd arranged for Mrs. Chen to fly out and watch Maya for the night, which should have been Sienna's first clue something was happening. Where are we going? She asked as they drove out of the city. You'll see. They ended up back in their old neighborhood in California, which Sienna definitely hadn't expected. Adrian parked in their old apartment complex, in the exact spot where Sienna's car had died all those months ago. Why are we here? She asked. Adrian got out without answering, came around to open her door. The parking lot looked exactly the same, still bathed in that sickly yellow light, still surrounded by the same cars and buildings and ordinary life. This is where it started, Adrian said. Right here. You had a dead battery, I had jumper cables, and you said something you didn't mean to say. Sienna felt her heart start to race. Adrian, and I've been thinking about that moment a lot lately, about how everything changed because your car wouldn't start, and I happened to be loading groceries, and you were tired enough to be honest about what you were feeling. He took both her hands, about how none of this was planned, but it was exactly what we both needed. What are you doing? I'm bringing us back to the beginning, to the place where you said, if only you were my husband, and meant it, even though you barely knew me. Adrian smiled. And I'm asking if you still mean it. He pulled out a ring box, and Sienna stopped breathing. I know we do everything backwards, Adrian continued. Moved in together before we'd been dating 6 months, relocated across the country before we really knew if this would work, built a family before we had any idea what we were doing. But that's us, Sienna. We don't follow the rules, we just keep choosing each other and figuring it out as we go. Adrian, so I'm asking you to keep choosing me. Officially this time. Not just as my girlfriend or my partner or Maya's sort of stepmom, but as my wife. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring that somehow captured everything they were. Marry me, Sienna. Make that accidental wish a real future. Sienna looked at the ring, at Adrian's hopeful face, at the parking lot where her entire life had pivoted in a single moment. She thought about everything that had happened since, the mistakes and the growth, the fear and the courage, the constant work of building something real with another person. She thought about Maya waiting back in Boston, probably nervous about whether Sienna would say yes, about the life they'd built together, imperfect and messy and absolutely worth fighting for, about the choice she'd made over and over again to show up, to be present, to prioritize love alongside ambition instead of sacrificing one for the other. "Yes," she said, the word coming out choked with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Adrian's smile could have lit the entire parking lot. He slid the ring onto her finger, pulled her close, kissed her right there where everything had started. And Sienna felt the circle complete, the journey from that first accidental confession to this intentional commitment. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you and Maya and this crazy life we're building. Love you too, even when you work too much and forget to eat lunch and stay up too late answering emails. Even when you burn dinner and leave coffee cups everywhere and worry too much about everything? Especially then." They stood together in the parking lot, wrapped around each other, while the world continued around them. Cars came and went, people walked past. Life happened in all its ordinary glory. "We should get back," Sienna said eventually. "Maya's probably freaking out." "Probably. I told her I was going to ask you, and she spent 3 hours helping me pick the ring." Adrian laughed. "She's very invested in this. She's going to be the best flower girl. She's already planning her dress." They drove back to the airport, caught the red-eye to Boston, arrived home as the sun was coming up. Mrs. Chen took one look at Sienna's hand and started crying, which woke Maya, who came running out of her room in her pajamas. "Did you say yes?" she demanded. Sienna held out her hand, showing the ring. Maya shrieked loud enough to wake the entire building, threw herself at Sienna with enough force to nearly knock her over. "You're going to be my real mom now." "I'm going to be your stepmom," Sienna corrected gently. "But yeah, I'm going to be family, officially." "That's the same thing." Maya was bouncing with excitement. "Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a fancy dress? Can we have cake?" "Yes to all of it," Adrian said, scooping her up. "But maybe let's have breakfast first before we plan the entire wedding." They made pancakes again because apparently that was their thing now. Mrs. Chen insisted on taking photos of everything, documenting this moment in their strange little family's history. Sienna sat at the table wearing her engagement ring, watching Adrian burn the pancakes while Maya narrated the entire process, and felt a contentment so deep it almost hurt. This was what her mother had never understood, that success wasn't about how much you achieved, or how many hours you worked, or how many deals you closed. It was about building a life that felt worth living, about finding people who made you better instead of smaller, about choosing love without abandoning ambition, about being brave enough to want both. They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony in Boston, surrounded by the people who doubted them, and the people who'd believed in them, and the people who were still figuring out which category they fell into. Derek was there, having slowly come around after seeing how committed Sienna was to making the relationship work. Her mother came, looking genuinely happy for the first time Sienna could remember. Maya was the flower girl, wearing a dress she'd picked out herself that was slightly too fancy for the casual ceremony, but absolutely perfect for her. She took her job incredibly seriously, walking down the aisle, scattering petals with intense concentration. When Adrian and Sienna exchanged vows, they didn't promise perfection, didn't claim everything would be easy, or that they'd never struggle. Instead, they promised to keep choosing each other, to keep showing up, to keep building their imperfect life together one day at a time. "I promise to not work 18-hour days," Sienna said, making the small crowd laugh. "Or at least to not do it more than once a month. I promise to eventually learn how to cook something that's actually edible," Adrian countered, "or at least to stop pretending my terrible cooking is intentional. I promise to love Maya like she's my own, even though I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. I promise to be patient while you figure it out. I promise to never stop trying to balance everything, even when I fail at it. I promise to catch you when you fall." They kissed as husband and wife, and Maya cheered louder than anyone else, and Sienna felt something slot into place. This was her family now, chosen and fought for, and absolutely worth every sacrifice she'd made to get here. At the reception, Sienna's mother cornered her near the dessert table. "You did it," she said simply. "Did what?" "Built the life I couldn't. Had the career and the family. Proved it was possible." Her mother's eyes were suspiciously bright. "I'm proud of you, and a little jealous, if I'm being honest. It's not too late for you, to find this too." Her mother smiled sadly. "Maybe. Or maybe I just get to enjoy watching you have what I missed." They hugged, and Sienna felt decades of misunderstanding start to heal. Her mother had done her best with what she knew, had passed on the lessons she'd learned, even if those lessons were sometimes wrong. And Sienna was doing her best now, building something different, teaching Maya by example that you didn't have to choose between success and happiness. Later, after the ceremony and the reception and all the celebration, Sienna and Adrian and Maya went back to their apartment. Maya fell asleep in the car, exhausted from excitement. Adrian carried her to bed while Sienna changed out of her wedding dress into comfortable clothes. "We did it," Adrian said when he came back to their room. "We really did." "Any regrets?" Sienna thought about the career opportunities she'd turned down to stay present for her family, about the late nights she'd given up, the single-minded focus she'd let go of, the person she'd been before that night in the parking lot. "Not a single one," she said. "You?" "Just that we didn't do this sooner." Adrian pulled her close. "Could have saved ourselves a lot of stress. We had to figure it out first. Had to learn how to actually be partners instead of just saying we were." "Fair point." He kissed her softly. "Think we've figured it out now?" "I think we're still figuring it out. And we probably always will be." Sienna rested her head on his shoulder. "But that's okay. That's what marriage is. Constant negotiation and adjustment and choosing each other anyway." They stood together in their bedroom, in their Boston apartment, in the life they'd built from scratch. Outside, the city hummed with activity. Inside, Maya slept peacefully down the hall. And Sienna felt the weight of every choice she'd made, every sacrifice and compromise and moment of courage that had led her here. She'd given up the myth of having it all, had learned that you couldn't be everywhere at once or excel at everything simultaneously. But she'd gained something more valuable, a partnership that made her stronger, a daughter who taught her what mattered, a life that felt full instead of hollow. In the end, that parking lot confession had been more than an accidental slip of truth. It had been a wish spoken into existence, a declaration of what Sienna wanted before she even knew she wanted it. And somehow, impossibly, she'd gotten it. Not the fairy tale version where everything worked perfectly, but the real version where two imperfect people built something beautiful together through sheer stubborn commitment to showing up. "I love you," she told Adrian. "Thank you for being patient while I figured out how to do this." "Thank you for figuring it out instead of giving up." He smiled. "We make a good team. The best team." And standing there in their imperfect apartment with their imperfect family and their imperfect but absolutely genuine love, Sienna finally understood what her mother had spent her whole life searching for. Not perfection or achievement or validation from the world. Just this. The courage to be vulnerable, the strength to be present, and the wisdom to know that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never planned for. The dead car battery had been a gift. The parking lot confession had been a beginning. And everything that came after, every struggle and triumph and ordinary moment in between, had been the real work of building a life. Not the kind of life that looked good on paper or impressed strangers or fit into neat categories, but the kind of life that felt true, that honored who she was while making room for who she wanted to become. Maya wandered into their room sometime after midnight, half asleep and looking for comfort. She crawled into bed between them without asking, and they made room, like they always did. And Sienna lay there with her husband on one side and her daughter on the other, listening to them breathe, and thought about how far she'd come from that exhausted CEO standing alone in a parking lot. She'd found her family, not through perfect planning or careful strategy, but through being broken down enough to be honest about what she wanted. Through meeting a man who saw her exhaustion and offered help instead of judgment. Through choosing, over and over again, to show up for the hard work of actually loving people. The journey from that parking lot to this bedroom had taught her that strength wasn't about never needing anyone. It was about being brave enough to let people in. Success wasn't about sacrificing everything for your career or your family, but about building a life where both could coexist. And love wasn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone willing to build something imperfect together. As Sienna drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the people who'd become her whole world, she thought about that younger version of herself who'd whispered, "If only you were my husband," to a stranger in the dark. That woman had been desperate and tired and completely lost, but she'd also been honest, and that honesty had saved her. Because sometimes the things we're most afraid to want are exactly the things we need. Sometimes admitting weakness is the strongest thing we can do. Sometimes the life we plan isn't nearly as good as the life that happens when we're brave enough to let it. And sometimes a dead car battery and a single honest moment can change absolutely everything.